Counselor Dylan? All right.
Eric, this is the guy who's wearing a collared shirt for the first time.
Right. Yeah, what's up with that?
Sorry, man.
All right, here we go. I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the December 17th, 2024 business meeting of your Ashland City Council. Councillor Hyatt will offer the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work, the Ikirikutsum Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Rogue Valley and the lands we love and depend on. Tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed include the original past, present, and future Indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the Crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
Thank you. And Councillor Kaplan will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Mayor Graham,
Here.
Dale,
Here.
Bloom,
Here.
Hyatt,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Duquesne, Kaplan.
Here.
Thank you. So for mayor's announcements, just a couple. The first is that this is the last business meeting until January 21st. We'll be taking off the holiday and not meeting for the first meeting in January. So we will see everyone again on January 21st. And the second is that if you have come this evening and would like to speak to the council, either on an agenda item or on an item that is on your mind but is not on our agenda, please make sure that you fill out one of these speaker request forms. They are located on the back left wall, and you'll give them to Alyssa, who is bringing some to me right now. And please make sure that you note on your form if you are coming to speak to us on an agenda item. Make sure you mark that particular agenda item. If you've come tonight to speak to us during public forum on an item that is not on the agenda, please mark that on your speaker request form as well. This helps us bring you up at the appropriate time. I will also mention that it's important that you have your speaker request form to Alyssa before the beginning of the agenda item so that we know how many people wish to speak on that item, and that helps us keep the meeting moving at an appropriate pace. We now move on to the approval of minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Councillor Hyatt?
Mayor, I just want to make sure that we correct our minutes for the December 3rd business meeting to reflect the feedback received last night from Debbie Niswander.
Alyssa, do you have that? Yes. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to the presentation that Western Rivers Conservation gave, I would like to add after Hanson spoke of the potential, insert economic development in tourism and, to finish the sentence, increased mountain biking recreation.
I recall that was what was said as well. Any other corrections? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Or is it another correction? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hanson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the study session and regular business meetings.
And is
with,
that for
with
all
corrections.
4 of them? And that's for all 4 of those listed? Okay. Is there a second? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hyatt,
Yes?
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you. We are now to the consent agenda. There is one item that has two agreements on it. Would any counselor like to pull that item from the consent agenda? Okay, the floor is, Counselor Duquesne.
Thank you. I would like to pull the item for just some clarity,
Okay.
if I can. So my question about this, I don't know whom I'm going to ask this question to, city manager
Yeah, we'll have Rocky come up,
Oh, I
since
didn't
they're both
see you.
parks
or
questions.
all of the people. I couldn't see you. There you go. Good evening.
Yes, Counselor.
So my question, just some clarity around when I look at fiscal impact and looking at the last sentence in there. I understand from the presentation yesterday and from reading the packet, we have $1 million grant, right?
We have $1 million grant for the East Main project, yes.
Correct. And so, and it says significant funds have been identified in the 0411-Parks CIP fund to cover all related expenses. So tell me about those related expenses. I thought that East Main is going to be phases, correct? Phase 1, phase 2. And looking at those phases, when you said that all related expenses, what did you mean by that?
Thank you for the question. So in regards to this grant and the scope of work that's identified in it that needs to be completed, as if you do choose to sign the agreement, we have an obligation of about $1.4 million, about $400,000 in cash that we need to provide to meet the obligations of the grant, plus the $1 million in the grant funds that will be reimbursed. And so we have the 411 account, which is food and beverage tax. We have about a balance of about $3.4 million in there. So to complete phase 1 of the project, we have sufficient funds in reserve to accomplish that project, meet the requirements of the grant. Future phases would be not part of this application today or this request for the agreement, and we would be working through our capital planning process and with our commission to do those in future years.
So it's the 3.4 million plus the money that you have in the CIP Parks Fund? Or is that 3.4 million the CIP Parks Fund?
So the food and beverage tax, or the 411, is we call the capital improvement program. So that is the balance today. So that is the funds that we have to do capital projects of city funds that we have. We also have system development charges, which is in a different account number that we would have in addition, and our balance is about 400,000 today to do other costs.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, the floor is open for a motion regarding the amendments. Counselor Hyatt?
I move to approve OPRD's local government grant program agreements for the Hunter Park Tennis Courts Rehabilitation Project and the East Main Bicycle Pump Track Park.
I'll second that.
Counselor Hyatt?
I'm just excited to make the motion because I know the East Main project specifically has been on the radar for many years, and it's super exciting to see it starting to pull together. I know there is a ton of work behind the scenes that we have not seen on the day-to-day, so thank you for that, for sure. And I look forward to this facility being in the location it is and serving our community in the very thoughtful way it has been laid out. So thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you to the APRC.
Counselor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Counselor. That was well said, and thank you, staff, APRC staff, for chasing this grant, and previous Director Eldridge for shepherding that movement. I know that also, in addition to in addition to East Main, Hunter Park has opportunity for some really world-class tennis pros to further develop that sport here, and there's a lot of need for it and a lot of talented athletes that are going to be using that facility. So I'm glad to see that getting up to pro quality. And then, this East Main Park is going to serve a real niche function for a lot of different people. There's a lot in that park through all the phases with the community garden and the dog walking and the other recreation that happens there, including the awesome bike skills park, which is really a need for developing those skills for younger people, especially, but beginning mountain bikers in the town. So thank you very much. Happy to support this.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rocky, and congratulations on the grants. For special presentations, we start with the C-Click Fix demo. And I know we are all very excited to see this. We've known this is coming for a while, and
Just as a quick intro, so Leah Richards is our GIS manager, and she was a project manager on setting this up. So she worked with all the departments to make this happen under my very aggressive deadline. So I want to give a lot of kudos to her for her perseverance and calm head as she implemented this program.
great. And Leah, if you can turn that mic on and pull it towards you. Great, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Graham, councilors, Manager Cotta, and staff. My name is Leah Richards. I'm the GIS manager in the Department of Innovation and Technology. I am a City of Ashland employee for 20 years, and I'm an Ashland resident for most of the last 35 years, and a graduate of SOU. Thank you for allowing me to use about 10 to 12 minutes of your time to share one of our new initiatives, C-Click Fix. What is C-Click Fix? C-Click Fix is a community-driven platform that allows residents to report non-emergency issues such as potholes, graffiti, and broken streetlights. Reports are submitted via a user-friendly mobile app or through our website, complete with photos and GPS data. This tool empowers residents to contribute to the upkeep of their neighborhoods while providing city staff with actionable data to prioritize and resolve issues effectively. See a problem? Click in the application and fix. The city staff is notified and begins assessing the request to fix it. Some of the benefits of C-Click Fix, it improves efficiency. Instead of requests coming in via phone or email or people walking into the counter at down at community development or other places, and then the city staff needing to communicate that further out to field staff. With C-Click Fix, the request goes directly to the staff responsible for following up. C-Click Fix helps with transparency. If the citizen has signed up for an account in the application, they will get an email as the status of their request moves through the process. Community engagement. This tool improves engagement and encourages folks to take an active role in improving city infrastructure. And C-Click Fix helps with data-driven decisions. It provides reports that will let us know about recurrent issues, which will help us understand where resources are needed. So the city teams that are engaged. Report categories were configured with each department's input on what kinds of requests for service that they typically receive and what kind of information that they require to process the request. There are a few categories that could be handled by two different departments depending on the specifics of the issue. When this happens, the primary department can move the issue to the correct department. Sometimes a report comes in that is not in the correct category or department. In those cases, the administrator will move the issue to the correct department for follow-up. There are a number of things that people can report that are of a more sensitive nature or might implicate someone. These reports are received, evaluated, and responded to, but they are not listed outwardly on the map in order to protect the identity of those involved. This information for these types of reports is kept confidential. The beauty of this system is that we can quickly configure a report for a new initiative, and it can be used for more than just reporting problems if we choose to use it that way. For example, in November of this year, a big windstorm was approaching the area, and our emergency operations coordinator, Kelly Burns, was gearing up to address any problems that might arise. We decided to configure a storm damage reporter and moved it to the very top of the list of report categories. People were encouraged to report downed trees or limbs or minor flooding. Although not many reports came in that evening on this report, we did get a few, and it showed us the power of this kind of communication. A number of people did report the large power outage that occurred that night. We had the power outage report routing to Kelly as well as to the electric crew, who were already on site, and they were very busy. Kelly was able to update people directly about what was going on. As you saw in the last slide, we have 40 report categories configured. 27 citizens have taken the extra step and signed up for an account, which allows them to receive feedback directly about issues that they report. We also receive a fair number of guest requests. In this case, the request comes in, and our teams consider and respond to the request, but no notice is able to be sent back since it was submitted anonymously. We have 37 staff members involved with SeeClickFix in one capacity or another, including call takers, field responders, managers, and administrators. We have been receiving about 10 requests per week, but expect that to pick up once the word gets out. Some requests are resolved very quickly, while others, such as code compliance cases, can take weeks to research and resolve. Well, here's the geographic distribution of the reports so far this year, because it's a map, it's geography, that's what I'm all about. This map shows where requests for service were placed between May and November. The colors represent what the status of each request is. As of this date, there were 13 tickets in process. 9 had been closed in the last 30 days, and 98 were closed more than 1 month. Other reports are also available. We can find out the types of issues that are reported the most, and we can see how much time it takes to address the requests that are placed. We can slice and dice the information in many ways, which can inform decisions. Now let's explore what the mobile app looks like and how to get started. To install SeeClickFix on your mobile phone or other device, you visit the App Store or Google Play and search for SeeClickFix, and you will be looking for an app that looks like this image. There are other SeeClickFix apps out there that are branded to specific cities, but you just want the generic one because we just use that one. When you open the app, you will see this screen. Then in here, you search for Ashland, Oregon. Once you pick Ashland, you will see this screen. This is our home page. From here, you can reach out to the main city website, you can call non-emergency dispatch, you can reach the Ashland Utility Department, or you can go to our mapping hub. You can also place a request from here. So if you would like to register for an account, you click on Profile, which is in the bottom right corner. It will open this screen that you see here. It will take you out to create a new account, which is on the Civic Plus website. So it looks a little different than the other experience, but this is the correct place. So next, let's place a new request. You can find this in the center of the screen at the bottom. In the mobile app, the first screen you will see will ask you to add a photo, as on the screen here. You can snap a photo, you can use a photo that you've already collected and is on your device, or you can select no photo. Next, you'll be prompted to enter a location for the service request. The location is shown as the orange circle with the X in the center of the map. You can allow the device to just automatically place the dot on the map based on your phone GPS. You can enter an address in the address bar, or you can move the map around to center the dot in the correct location. Click Next in the top right. From here, you choose what category that you want to report about. In this example, I'm reporting an issue on a trail in North Mountain Park. You click Next at the top right. So this will take you to the final screen that the citizen will be guided through a series of questions. In many cases, information about this category will also be shared. And then you click Submit at the top right, and it's completed. How is a request routed? When a request comes into the system, it is automatically routed to the staff or team responsible for fixing the problem. For example, A pothole request will be delivered to the streets department staff. A graffiti issue will go to a police officer. A water leak will be sent to the water crew, etc. When staff receives the request, they acknowledge receipt of it, which pushes a message back to the citizen if they signed up for an account. Next, staff assesses the issue. If the problem can be addressed, it is added to the work schedule, and once work is completed, staff closes the request and a message is sent back to the citizen. In some cases, a report cannot be remedied due to it being bigger than the citizen understands, or there is information that we have internally that prohibits action. For example, a citizen reported that a vehicle had been abandoned on their street, but when an officer assessed the vehicle, it was found to be owned and registered to a neighbor. When an issue cannot be fixed, basic information is communicated back to the citizen and the ticket is closed. Progress and challenges. The city has successfully integrated SeeClickFix into its operations. Initial feedback has been mostly positive. Challenges remain around managing citizen expectations, budget and time constraints, and the normal hesitancy that comes from a major change in how we do business. We will continue to refine categories and questions. We hope to integrate this system with our asset management program in the near future for some types of requests. And if there's enough time, I can walk through a live demonstration on our city website. But I know you have a loaded schedule, so it's very similar to what I've just showed you. And also, I'm ready for questions if you have any questions.
Great. Yeah, we do have a very big agenda this evening, so let's start with questions. Councillor Bloom.
Thank you. This is incredible. It's going to be very transformative for the city, and I can't help but notice that, you know, we've got the motto "Better Together" there. This is quite literally the definition of "better together." I know a lot of people post on social media asking, who do I contact at the city to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't know who to call, and then you go through this long process, and this is certainly going to speed it up. The one question I do have, I really appreciated the slides you had walking through the process. Mm-hmm. It can be challenging sometimes when somebody says, you know, download this app for this purpose, and there's so many duplicates. I'm just wondering if we could get what it would look like to get some of those slides put up on the website so people can kind of see what they need to do step by step, if that's possible.
Yeah, we could turn this PowerPoint into a presentation that we could share.
That's great. Thank you. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Leah. This is awesome, and I appreciate all your hard work. It's really cool. In fact, I signed up in real time as you were talking. It took me about 30 seconds, so it was super easy and really cool. This question might be more for city manager. How does this, if any, overlap with our existing code compliance link that's about 5 pages deep in community development? Is there overlap relative to, would we now use this for things like weed abatement, or when there's a garage sale and someone puts a free couch, you know, as a resident there, and we shouldn't be doing that kind of thing? Is it?
So I think Leah can speak to this, but there's still some integration going on with that, because there's, you know, with code compliance, that's a whole other element that involves kind of potentially conflict between two parties. And so some of it is redirected towards InterGov that way.
So use this first is what you would like, or you'd like us to go to the?
I think if the option is on SeeClickFix, use SeeClickFix. If it's not, it may be an InterGov type situation if it's code compliance.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Hansen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Leah. This is super exciting. I too just downloaded it and have it. I'm not as fast as Councillor Dale. Yeah. I got some stuff to report. I'm curious though. I see the functionality, and it, you know, out of the box looks like it's got a lot of great features. I'm curious how far the city, and maybe this is a good question for Ty or city manager as well, can we go down the reports? Can we report near misses? Like cyclists have the ability to report near misses, and you gather that data and give it to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and we study traffic studies, et cetera. Is that something that you think we'll be getting into?
There's a couple of reports that we already have existing applications for. One of them is wildlife concerns. People want to report about bears or cougars
Oh, yeah.
or deer And we built that particular application many years ago, and so we have a whole history of data there that we'd like to keep going with. As far as near miss, we've had one sitting out there for about 2 years for near miss reports, and so we've been hesitant to add that to this particular thing. You can find them all on the city website on the same page, though.
Okay.
Yeah, it brings up a good point. A part of this tool is collecting data for decision making, which is why we're trying to, because right now you can call the city, you can email us, right? So all this data about what the community needs is coming in, but it's not being collected in a uniform way. So as much as we can push people to this application, and of course we're still going to, address the phone concerns and the email concerns, this helps collect data to see where, issues are arising or where we need to, redirect our resources to try to address that. So I think this will be, as we collect that data over time, a useful tool when we're having, resource discussions, budget discussions, et cetera.
Okay. Second question, if you mind. I know that if there's an emergency, we need to dial 911.
Yes.
And if there is something that's a non-emergency, we have different ways of reporting. Are there plans to develop the non-emergency reporting? Like, for instance, there's, trespassing or some sort of loitering or whatever citizen concerns may be around parks or different neighborhoods throughout the city. We're going to be talking about our ELIA and our efforts in, collecting data and making data decisions, database decisions. Are we going to further integrate those types of reportings into this, you think, or is that separate?
So I think that stays separate. So if you're having an issue with trespassing, call the non-emergency line. So if you're looking for a response from our public safety, you need to utilize that line. If you see graffiti, it's not an
Gotcha.
emergency. We can get to it when we can, address it. That's the difference.
That's a good distinction. Thank you. Yeah, good work. This is awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Thank you very much, Leah. I was really excited about this. I've actually I downloaded it a few weeks ago because I wanted to try it out. So that was so. My question is really more about some of the user capability. So, what happens when 2 people or 4 people or 8 people report the same incident? Does it generate separate tickets? Is it somehow consolidated? Can the 4th person to see the dead deer decide, look on it and say, well, it's already been reported, I don't have to do it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I did not go over that, but there is a map that goes along with this that shows what reports have been made. It won't show those ones of a sensitive nature that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
But most of the reports in there, things like potholes or whatever, you'll be able to look on there and see if it's been reported. Also, if somebody just sends in a report about it and staff notices that it's a duplicate, we can mark it as a duplicate. It's really easy. There's just a button for it.
Great. One more, just for the question. And then this is all smartphone based. Is it also available on the computer? Can somebody do it at home?
It's on our city website, yes.
You just go through the city website.
Would you like me to quickly show you where to find it?
Sure.
Okay. So when you go to our homepage, there are several different ways that you can find something, as I remember Dorinda showing everyone. There are, you can just search easily. You can search for report, and it'll bring it up. You can go to I want to, and then here I'll just click it. Under the I want to page, there is a place in here for report a problem. There's several other places you can find it as well. So when you go here to this page, if you don't have it on if you don't have a smartphone or you don't want to download this, it's fine. You can report it here. You can either click on this little icon here and it'll take you to the reporter, or, sorry, this computer's a little hyper. Okay, or you could click in this middle tab where it says report here. It gives you some instructions on what you need to do, and then right down below it's embedded into the website, so you can just report it directly here.
Okay.
Great.
I have a quick question.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. Thanks, Leah. I wanted to know, Counselor Bloom asked if this could be put out there so that people would know the process and how to apply it to their phone. Where is it going to live if I wanted to go to our website and see how to download this, just like you showed us? Where is that going to live? How would I find it once it's implemented?
I'm not sure exactly where we'll put it, but we'll make it obvious.
So I think the easiest way, if you just go, I want to report, it takes you right here, and then you can just click on the
So it
app.
would go to, it would live with, I want to report. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably the quickest
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that after the storm, we use this to collect information about downed trees and those kinds of hazards. Is there more of a conversation to be had in terms of emergency management for the types of things that might be either community-wide or affect a large section of our community that would come from natural hazards, so that we could automatically, very quickly put out the call that says, please let us know if you see these things that we need to get after right away? Are we having those kinds of conversations with Kelly in the emergency
Oh,
management
absolutely.
side?
Kelly was super excited about this. It was really easy to configure for him. And of course, if there's something that's emergent, you wouldn't think to report it here. But sometimes it happens when there's a power outage and you call the power outage report number, you'll just get a busy signal because a lot of other people are calling in. And so you can rest assured that it's been reported. But this is another way you can say, oh, well, I'll just get on the C-Click Fix app and report it there. And then we get that information. And so it really helped in that particular instance, because then we could see the distribution of the power outage reports.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that answers your
Yeah,
question.
I'm thinking
We're
it's mostly
talking
in the
about-
aftermath of a disaster where there are
Or smaller issues, for
public
sure.
safety. Well, yeah, they're like down trees, right? If there's a down tree, it's obviously not knocked an electric line down, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
It's not an emergency, but the city needs to know about it. So that's great. Are
There's
there
not
any?
a set configuration.
Pardon me?
So there's not a set configuration. Like we
Right.
can go in and alter it like we
Yes.
did for the storm. So we can do that for whatever we
Anything.
want. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us, Leah. And I will get signed up as soon as our meeting is done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, what just happened here? My seat just went down. Thank you, Leah. All right. We are now to the audit presentation.
Marianne, I can't show them and your Zoom folks at the same time. So it's either the PowerPoint or your presenters.
Can you show the PowerPoint and take it down and then?
Yeah, yeah. Just not. Okay. PowerPoint first.
Yeah.
Okay.
PowerPoint first. And then I'll pass it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Graham and councilors. Mary Ann Berry, Finance Director, and I am also happy to introduce you to Dana Mason, Finance Manager, who oversees audit, and Miranda Iwamoto, next to her, Accounting Manager, who oversees accounting operations. We are here to present to you the ACFR, Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and Audit Results for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Staff will provide the highlights of the ACFR. Amanda McCleary Moore, partner at Moss Adams, will present the audit results, and Kristen Roy, audit committee member, will provide the independent committee report to you. If you have any questions for our auditors, we ask that you bring them up to Amanda after her presentation so that we can release her as she is in the thick of audit season. All other questions, should you have any, can be answered after the committee report. I will also start by saying that this is the first year after several years of not having an audit committee. We are still finding our stride in organizing ourselves with a committee given the actual workload of managing the audit. The audit is always a big lift on staff to close the year, reconcile everything, perform year-end entries, and work on the audit in addition to all their other responsibilities. This year, we had several new items that pushed our timeline to the very, very end, and as such, we look forward to improving that for our audit committee next year. I want to thank Shane Hunter, Paula Hyatt, Jane Adrianova, and Kristen Roy for serving on the committee this year. Kristen will go over the major changes for the city's financial operations in her presentation. I wanted to give council and our community a quick review of what the ACFR is composed of. The financial report is a 170-plus document of 170-page document that summarizes the city's financial health and provides detail on current operations. Main components of the ACFR starts with the transmittal letter written by City Manager Cotta, which provides background on the city and an update on current events, such as being awarded the GFOA, Government Finance Officer Association, Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 36th year, and also the GFOA Award for Distinguished Budget Presentation for multiple bienniums. On page 16, we have the MD&A, Management Discussion and Analysis, that offers a year-over-year comparative summary and management commentary. The basic financial statements start on page 30, which include the statement of net position, balance sheet, statement of revenues and expenditures and activities, and the cash flow statement. An integral part of reviewing the financials is the notes to the basic financial statements on page 40. After that are supplementary reports that assist in completing the rest of the financial story for the City of Ashland. Finally, one of the most important parts of the ACFR are the audit letters and opinions, which Amanda will go over. But before she does, I wanted to thank Dana and Miranda and their teams for supporting Moss Adams and managing another clean audit, which is truly a year-round effort. With that, I will pass the baton over to Amanda.
Thanks, Marianne. Are you running our slides? It looks like our presentation is up on the screen, or can we share our screen?
You can share your screen.
Okay.
It was a backup plan just in case.
Perfect. Well, it looks like I'm sharing the wrong screen. Are you seeing the presentation?
No.
Yes.
You are.
Well, we're seeing a document. If you've got a slideshow, then we're not seeing the slideshow.
I think that
It's
might
PDF.
be the beginning of the slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the first page.
Okay, you're good.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I print it to PDF. I just find it's easier to maneuver than using PowerPoint to do a presentation on these types of things. So that's why it looks a little bit different. But thanks for having us here today. I am Amanda McCleary Moore. I'm a partner with Moss Adams, and I work solely with governmental entities. I specialize in working with cities and counties. And I also have Kim Reno here with me today. Kim, if you want to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, my name's Kim Reno. I sit in our Metford office. I've been with Moss Adams for approximately 12 years, working alongside with Amanda on city and county government entities, and I specialize in governments as well.
And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to you. You can just tell me when to switch the slides so I can do that for you.
Okay. So this first one just kind of goes over the agenda, the items that we'll go over today. So the first one is the engagement team. We'll also go over the nature of the services provided, our auditor opinions and reports, our required communications to those charged with governance, and then we'll end with some new and upcoming standards. So we've already introduced ourselves. Amanda McCleary Moore is the partner on the job. She was responsible for signing the report and making sure that the audit is complete. I assist her as the senior manager in reviewing some of the audit binders as well as the ACFR, and also assisting the staff with their questions and kind of go in between both Dana and our team. And then what you don't see here is there are several other members included on our team that sit both in the Medford and Eugene offices that are an integral part of our team. So this first slide is just showing the services that are provided to you guys. First one is the audit of the city's financial statements. We do the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, but because Ashland is also a government entity, we also do it under the governmental standards.
Amanda?
We also,
Amanda, is it possible to zoom into that screen a little bit so that we can read it a little bit better? Perfect. Thank you.
okay.
There you go.
So the next, is that good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I might be able to go one more, but then I might be off the page.
I think this is fine.
Okay.
So the next item is that we assist with the technical review of the respective annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR, for compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. And as Marianne mentioned, you guys also get the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence. So this is additional procedures that management performs to make sure that you guys get this award. It includes some introductions and statistical information, as well as some formatting items. So they do a really good job of putting together this 200-page document so that we can do our audit, and we always appreciate their assistance. And then the next item is the compliance and testing reporting. Since the city is an Oregon municipality, we are required to perform procedures in regards to compliance over OMS, or Oregon Minimum Audit Standards. Most of our procedures are surrounded by budget and procurement law. And then the next item is the single audit of federal grant programs under uniform guidance. So this is a separate audit. It's also a compliance audit under uniform guidance. Since the city receives and expends over $750,000 in federal money, we're required to audit the major programs under the uniform guidance requirements. And then lastly, reporting. So one of the things that we do is before we start an audit, we talk with those charged with governance. This year it was the audit committee, to get an understanding of the various risk areas and to develop an overall audit plan. After our audit's complete, we then meet again to go over our audit results, which is what we're doing here today, so that we can communicate any internal control findings and any issues with non-compliance. Then I'll turn this over to Amanda.
All right, so after we do the work that Kim mentioned, so after we follow those different auditing standards and provide our services to the city, we issue 4 audit reports, which I know sounds like quite a lot. The first report that we issue is over that 200-page document, which is your annual comprehensive annual report, or your financial statements. And we express an opinion on whether or not those financial statements are presented materially correct in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. So that first bullet point on the slide there is showing that we issued a clean or unmodified opinion. So after we performed all of our procedures, we were able to conclude that the financial statements were fairly presented in accordance with those generally accepted accounting principles. So good news there. The second report is because you are that Oregon municipality, we do have to issue an additional report over compliance with some of the Oregon revised statutes and Oregon administrative rules that you have to follow. Kim touched on a couple of those, so there's quite a few that we have to test. The bulk of our time does spend looking at your procurement procedures as well as your budget law, but there's also quite a few other requirements related to how you invest your cash and who you bank with. So we spend quite a bit of time looking at those rules. And we were able to issue a report that had no reportable findings. That means we did not identify any instances of noncompliance with the Oregon revised statutes to include in that report. Additionally, that report, as well as the next report on the slide, the Governmental Auditing Standards Report, if we were to identify some sort of internal control deficiency, which essentially means an error could slip through the cracks, we have to evaluate that and determine whether or not it's significant, which means that we need to report it to you. Or if we think a material error could slip through the cracks, which is called a material weakness, which also is required to be reported to you. it would be included in these two reports. And as you can see on the slide there, we had no reportable findings. That means we did not identify any instances of non-compliance that were required to be reported in these reports, as well as we did not identify any control deficiencies that rose to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness. So overall clean reports. The last report is the Uniform Guidance Report. This is our audit of your federal awards. For fiscal year 2024, we did audit your Airport Improvement Program Award, and as part of that audit, we are testing compliance, and we do look at internal controls as well. It's slightly different because we're not looking at financial controls. We are looking at internal controls over compliance. And we issue a report over the internal controls as well as compliance. And we did not identify any internal control deficiencies that rose to the level of significant deficiency or material weakness, as well as no reportable instances of non-compliance. And we do issue an opinion over the award when we audit it. So for your Airport Improvement Program, we issued a clean or unmodified opinion. So really, it doesn't get much better than this. All four very clean reports. Your team does a really, really good job, and issuing well ahead of the deadline set in Oregon, which is December 31st. So overall, just congratulations with some really good news. And with that, I will turn it back to Kim.
So this is just kind of a high-level critical audit area. This isn't all the areas that we audit, but this does show kind of the areas that we spend the most time in. So we'll have various procedures over these, but really we look at these because either they're more complex in nature, they're significant in size, or there might be some involved estimates that we have to look at. And then this is the communications to those charged with governance. So in addition to the reports, we also issue a letter, and these are our required communications. So the first bullet point just states that we did plan, scope, and timing. So if there was something that differed in the scope of our audit or in the timing as outlined in the engagement letter, we'd be required to communicate those to you. We had neither in this case. And then the significant accounting policies. So there are various accounting policies that management can select. Those significant accounting policies are found in the beginning of the notes to your financial statements so that you can review what management has elected to adopt. And then the next bullet point is talking about management judgments and accounting estimates. So accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statements. They're based on management's assumptions about future events or their historical knowledge and experience about past events. The next one is audit adjustments made in past. So there's really kind of three levels of materiality that we have when it comes to financial statements. The first one, if there was an item that was below this first threshold, we'd consider it clearly trivial and immaterial, and we'd not be required to report it to management. If something was above that level but below what we call tolerable misstatement, we would bring it to management, and management would have the option to correct the misstatement or to go ahead and pass. If there's something that falls in this category, we are required to communicate that to you. There were 2 of these types of adjustments this year, and it related to utility receivables. And then the last level is really, if something fell above the materiality threshold, management would be required to make an adjustment in order to keep a clean opinion and not affect the materiality of the financial statements. And then these last 3 bullet points, if either of these 3 items occurred during the audit, we'd be required to communicate these to you as well. We are not aware of management's consultation with other accountants. There were no disagreements with management, and we had no difficulties in performing the audit.
One thing that I might mention on the one past adjustment that Kim just mentioned related to the audit, these actually were not errors identified as part of our audit process. These were actually adjustments that management had brought to us related to estimating an allowance on some utility receivables. So just something to kind of highlight there. The last thing that we want to mention is that as part of our audit process and as part of management's process of putting together the financial statements annually, we do have rules to follow. And in the for fiscal year 2024, we actually had to comply with 2 new audit rules. So you can see those on the slide there that relate to auditing accounting estimates and our risk assessment associated with determining how to audit those, as well as getting an understanding of the environment. Not that this isn't something that is brand new, but it did change the rules a little bit on the documentation that we need to include in our audit files when we're auditing different types of entities. It also changed our risk assessment and how we determine which areas are considered to be significant and what we need to include in our audit approach. So those two were related to changes that we had to implement as part of the audit process over this last year. The last 4 bullet points are related to accounting standards that management has to implement. Only one of these was effective for your fiscal year 2024, and that's that first one on the slide there, GASB 100, related to accounting changes and error corrections. This did not have an impact on the city's financial statements for this year, but it is something that could impact the statements going forward as it relates to if some sort of error was identified after the fact, or if you have a significant change in accounting policy. Or what is probably most likely to occur is if you have any changes in your major funds. Those are the funds that are presented in the first few pages of your statements. So if there is a change to those major funds that are reported there, how you report for them going forward changes a little bit than in the past. So, but no impact to the current year. The last 3 GASB statements on the slide there, 102, 103, are effective for next or 101, 102, and 103 are effective in subsequent fiscal years. So for fiscal year 2025 coming up in the next 6+ months, management will need to get an understanding of these new accounting standards and see if they have an impact to the city's financial statements. The first one is on compensated absences. So I suspect that there could be some modification to how compensated absences are reported as a liability in the city financial statements. And then the GASB 102 is related to risk disclosures, and so it won't really have an impact to the actual financial statements, so your balance sheet, income statement type statements, but it could have an impact to what is disclosed in the notes. And then there actually are 2 accounting standards that are effective but won't be until 2026. One of them is not listed on the slide there, that GASB 103 and 104 are just something to be aware of for the future. While the GASB has slowed down on implementing new accounting standards, they've been a little bit more active over the last couple years. So something just to make sure that management has the ability to dive into these standards and see how they might impact the city financial statements. And with that, we just want to say thank you to Marianne and her team and helping us get through this audit and issue on time. Really appreciate all the respect that they give to us and getting us the information that we need timely and are very responsive to all of our requests. And with that, I will quit sharing my screen. And if anybody has any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Councillor Dale?
No question. I just wanted to really just thank all of you, Dana, Miranda, Marianne, Amanda, and Kim. This is awesome. As I was looking through my notes, and as I recall from last year this time, this was on the consent agenda. And I really, really appreciate the transparency. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate digging into this, especially as we go into budget season here for our next biennium, that this is available and is made aware to our community members that want to dig into this. Just really, really good work. I really appreciate the professionalism. Thank you so much.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to echo that. I too am glad that it's not on the consent agenda because this needs time. When I was listening to what was mentioned earlier, and I looked through the packet quickly, long-term debt. I didn't see how, and this is for our finance director, long-term debt. How are we managing long-term debt? I didn't see any details in the packet regarding that. Thank you.
Sorry about that. It's actually in the notes to the basic financial statements. There is a specific, I think it's note 5 or 6, that specifically outlines our long-term debt. There are a number of instruments that are considered in our long-term debt, our geo bonds, some revenue bonds, et cetera, and that section should have the details on that.
And I also heard you mention cash flow. And looking at cash flow, my question is that what are we currently doing what is the estimated revenue for 2025, 2026?
Estimated revenue for the entire city?
2025, 2026, approximate.
Is that's
For the, so
For the-
there are several revenue sources. For the general fund, we have particular revenue sources that are derived from property taxes and TLT and food and beverage and electric users tax. Is that in a particular page? So if you're looking for the general fund revenue, you could also look at page 76 of the ACFR, Schedule of Revenues and Expenditures, Budget and Actual for the general fund. And in particular, can I give her,
And for the general fund, I didn't when I was.
it's for the biennium. The total revenues for 23 to 25 biennium is 85.5 million.
85.5 million.
Again, for the biennium,
For this last biennium.
not annual. So we report that in our monthly financial statements. Is there a specific revenue
Well,
question?
let me interject. One of the things we have coming is our budget process, where I think we'll be talking more specifically about the
Yes.
future projections. So we want to keep this conversation here focused on the audit.
And I understand that. I just wanted some clarity because I know we are coming up to our budget season.
And actually, I do want to, I'm happy to answer more financial statement questions or financial operations questions. I do want to be able to be cognizant of Amanda's time because they also
Yes.
have other audit commitments to make as well. So if there are any questions for them.
Any final questions for our auditors? Great. Well, thank you so much for presenting to us this evening. It is great news again to get such a clean bill of health, and I appreciate the good work of our staff and our audit committee. Both of that whole process is really an integral part of making sure that we get to this point and we have a clean audit.
Thank you. And I'm going to say thank you to the Moss Adams team on our behalf. We're really it was a nice partnership to be able to get through what is always a lot.
And it looks like we have a couple of questions. Are there questions for the audit?
Not for the audit.
Okay, not for the auditors.
We do have one more presentation by our audit committee member who will speak to the independent report.
Great. Let's take the
All right.
couple of questions. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Amanda.
All right,
And
thanks,
Kim?
everyone.
Let's ask those couple of questions, and then we'll hear from our audit committee. So, Councillor Kaplan?
Well, this is really about financials. It's not really about the audit per se. So I don't know if you want to hold that. or
Let's
you want me to-
hold those, and we may, tonight may not be the evening as well
No,
for,
I think it's important for tonight. So if I could get.
then let's go ahead and do it now.
Okay, I will. So I really very much appreciate the great work that the finance team has done throughout the year in order to get a clean audit. I looked through the management discussion analysis and all the notes and all this those things very carefully over the weekend, and it really shows that our city is in quite good health. So thank you all to staff for the careful management of those resources. My question really is about the fact that that's all looking backwards from only up to June 30th, 2024. We've actually had no financial data or no financial reports covering the 6 months that are between July 1st of 2024 and today. And I feel a little uncomfortable with that because a lot could change in 6 months. And we generally have open.gov that tracks actuals, and that's not been operating right now, and I understand the reasons why. But we also haven't had the monthly financial reports that you referenced earlier that we do tend to get, that show us fund balances and show revenues and expenditures. So I really have no real way to see where we are today. All I can do is see where we were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So my question is, when can we have a report, an up-to-date report on this? Maybe the first meeting in January or something, or some way to get that information back into our
Yes.
hands so we feel comfortable going forward?
Absolutely. To address your initial concern or question or comment, one of the reasons why we don't have it updated in OpenGov is because the audit is not done in the system until we are able to finalize the funds because of the audit report. We cannot roll that balance, and Miranda, feel free to speak up or if I'm doing great, you just give me a thumbs up. So we can't roll that balance forward to be able to then update OpenGov, the interactive financial reporting portal that we have been using to report these types of things to the public. That being said, I do think that we can make that improvement next year to start putting those draft unaudited monthly financials up, knowing that those financials are going to change. They just are during the course of the audit. So, but I think we will work to go ahead and present those on the website as unaudited and draft form. I also have on the look ahead to present the second quarter financial results. I believe it's in February, so that's coming. But I will go ahead and post the financials through through November, right? Before Miranda has a heart attack. November 30th, this week, yes.
That would be great. Just getting us approximate. I understand they're unaudited, so they could change.
Right.
But that's really helpful. So
Yep.
Open.gov then essentially is not useful for us for 6 months of the year because it takes 6 months every year so we're only getting actuals. I guess I hadn't realized that in the past. Has that always been the case? In previous years, we haven't had access to open.gov in the fall? I wasn't aware of that.
OpenGov is relatively, this is prior to my time, but I think it was relatively recent that we were uploading the actual financials in that system in the last 2 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I recall that we had a conversation similar to this, I think last year, where we had this gap and we didn't get the report on the first quarter of the new fiscal year because we hadn't closed the previous one.
Right.
And I think that's where I think the council has maybe requested to get that, even though we recognize that the audit's not complete yet.
Right.
So that would be for the first quarter of the new fiscal year, so July, August, September, getting that report sometime in November potentially. And so we did get that.
Yes, I did report that first quarter. And
that hasn't adjusted.
So we've been doing the reports to council. I think it's just the monthly
The ones
financial
that-
statements that are on the website, and then the
website.
use of OpenGov is
Yeah.
put on hold.
The
So-
last quarterly we've had was October 1st, and that was for the 3 months going to
First
July
quarter
to June.
of
No, not the
fiscal
first
year
quarter, the last
2025.
quarter. We haven't had a first quarter report yet. Yeah, it was the last quarter. We haven't had the first quarter report.
Okay.
So
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
We can talk that through and we'll work out how to get that schedule so that we don't have this hitch when
That
we're in the middle
gap.
of the audit
Sure.
season.
That said, our finances look really good, so
Yes.
thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you, the whole team and the Budget Committee for putting in the hard work. Congratulations on passing the audit. When I look at the financials from my business lens, I see revenues up, but I also see expenses up. And to Councillor Kaplan's point, who has a deep, rich professional background in public finance, I'm assured that all the opinions are pointing the right direction. I just want to reassure citizenry that we are in a really strong financial place, and I'm looking for that one page in the 171 pages that really shows it, like my business P&L that doesn't exist for a city government. But for those that are looking at the packet and looking into this, what one or two things do we point to really underline that, to give somebody something like really to show like we didn't have budget shortfalls, we really handled our money well? Can you break it down?
I would focus on the management discussion and analysis. I think that the MD&A is a year-to-year comparative, and it also is a commentary of the entire year as a whole, but it also discusses by template. The MD&A discusses revenues, expenditures, capital assets, and key components of the financials. So I think it would be the MD&A.
Perfect.
Unless you're an accountant and you want to geek out on the financials, then I would definitely say the basic financial statements.
If I have trouble going to sleep after this meeting, I'll be sure to dig deeper, but that's exactly what I'm looking for, is that bottom line. Thank you, Marion. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you very much for your presentation.
We have
And
one more
We're moving
audit.
on to the audit
Yes.
committee, right? Yes.
Hi, Mayor Graham. Hi, councilors. My name's Kristen Roy. I am a healthcare attorney by background and have lived in Ashland for about 8 years now. Joined the audit committee this year. Work for a large nonprofit where I actually serve on the management side for the audit committee. So I'm now serving on the governance part. And this is the best news to hear that there's a clean audit. And we always say we want it to be boring. And so clean audit. We met as a governance committee on December 10th, where Moss Adams did provide us with the presentation that you heard today. I think from my perspective on the governance side, there are really three noteworthy things that we heard from the city's perspective on the operational side that I wanted to convey. First, you heard from Moss Adams' report the accounts receivable utility issue that was an adjustment. Just wanted to call that out, where there were higher balances for the accounts receivable, and that was really due for related to the delinquency processing really stopped because really the pandemic and just short staffing. So management has reported that has resumed this past spring and summer, and really on track to get ahead of that. But wanted to call that out for the council. The second issue that was reported was really the management team has really worked really hard on implementing two significant new standards. One relates to leases, that new accounting standards, along with subscription-based info technology agreements. And so this outlines the number of issues that they had this year and the tremendous amount of work that they had to do to really get to this place of a clean audit. And then the last thing and the third thing was the city has created 5 new system development charges for streets, park, water, wastewater, and storm. So again, a lot of detail and work that has gone in this past year. So just on the behalf of the audit committee, wanted to thank management for all of their hard work to get to this place.
Great. Any questions around the audit committee report? Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for bringing that representation from the committee and sharing that information with us. I think there has been a lot of changes, and we know that those changes cycle through our financials, and it takes quite a lot of work to restructure our financial management system when we make policy changes like that. So thank you for your hard work and your volunteering your time, and also to the rest of the committee. And with that, we will appreciate your time and let you get back to your evening. We are now to public forum. We have quite a few people who've signed up. We have a 15-minute time slot. So this evening, each speaker will receive a minute and a half. When you have 10 seconds left, Alyssa will give you a single chime. When you are out of time, you will receive a double chime, at which point we ask you to finish the sentence that you're on. I will name the first 4 people who will come to speak. If the first 2 can come to the microphones, that would be great, and then the other 2 can be lined up behind them. The first 2 speakers are Nora Doyle and Kiera Rittiz, and then Karen Caldwell and Laura Lawrence. The first 2 people, please come to these microphones, and please turn them on so that the red light is on at the top of the microphone. And please tell us your name and the city where you live as you're getting started.
Hi, my name is Nora. I'm a junior at South Medford High School. Hi, everybody. It's not often that we get to start off on a good note, but I'm really happy to see that the Climate and Clean Air Policy Package has been put on the agenda for January and February. I understand that this has taken a lot of work on both of our ends to get this to this point, so thank you. With the election, now more than ever, we must rely on local and state governments to legislate on climate issues, and remember that Ashland is not alone in this fight. Places like Bend are currently exploring similar options to Ashland, and it's up to us to lead the way. With this great news, we cannot lose sight of the end goal, which is passing bold climate policy that includes the low NOx emission standard, pollution fee, provisions to stop expansion of new pipelines along public right-of-ways, and a resolution to reduce air pollution in commercial and industrial sectors as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kiera Ortiz. I also live in Ashland. Hello. We're so happy that the Climate and Clean Air Policy Package is on the look ahead for January 21st. It's been 2 years since we've launched this campaign, so I just want to remind you all to pass the policy in full, including a low NOx emission standard to limit indoor air pollution in new homes that would eventually reduce to zero over time, following existing policies such as the Bay Area Quality Management Districts, a pollution fee for connecting new homes to gas hookups, with that money going into a fund to support energy efficiency upgrades for low-income households, a provision to stop the expansion of new fossil fuel hookups and pipes in the right-of-ways by the end of 2025, and finally, a resolution to reduce fossil fuel emissions in existing homes and new industrial and commercial buildings in the future. I want my children and my grandchildren to be able to experience seasons in different climates. You all have the opportunity to implement an amazing and great first step towards saving our planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Karen Caldwell and Laura Lawrence, followed by Andra Hollenbeck and Jackson Banks.
Hi, my name is Karen Caldwell. I live in Ashland. I've worked here and raised my family here. In 2020, the Alameda fire burned my son's home and all of his belongings to ash in a manufactured home park outside of Ashland. His insurance was good, but it didn't cover the full cost of replacing his home and furnishings. The impact on me and my husband is that we had to mortgage our home in order to help buy a new home for our son. The particular brand of climate disaster that we experience here in Oregon, wildfire, is thus already impacting 2 generations of my family. And I want so badly to avoid that impact in the next generation. Housing and climate interconnect. Housing impacts climate, and climate impacts housing. Ashland doing its part to create healthier homes can help all of us achieve a healthier climate. My machine's not working. So I am asking you to pass the Climate and Clean Air Package in full, including all the points you've just heard about. I thought I had something else to say, but never mind. Thank you. I'm sure that the next generation, as well as our current generations, will thank you for this work.
Thank you.
My name is Laura Lawrence. I'm a resident of beautiful Ashland, and I beg your indulgence as you've heard me testify over and over how very happy I am to have built and lived in for 10 years an all-electric, environmentally safe, economical, comfortable, and healthy house. There isn't much else I can say except to emphasize that I have absolutely no regrets that I abandoned the so-called natural gas way of living. And if anyone has any questions or concerns about what they might experience by following this route, I'm always eager to share and dispel any fears due to negative publicity. I want to help spread the good news of the benefits of going all electric. Thank you.
Thank you. Andra Hollenbeck, Jackson Bangs, followed by Mad Snyder and Susie Garcia.
I'm Andra Hollenbeck. Thank you for having us. I want to thank the committee and the commission for all the hard work on this policy. I'm really urging you to pass it. I hope it's as robust as it can be. And I know that there's been a lot of hard work. I know there's a lot of nuance in it, but I really want to encourage you to just be as aggressive on this issue as possible. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashland City Council, and everybody who passed the Climate and Clean Air package, because it will pay dividends in the near future in both environmental and economic ways, because future generations are still going to be paying a big price for the CO2 and greenhouse gases already in the atmosphere. So the actions taken today will keep this, at least some CO2 out of the atmosphere, and therefore at least slowing down some of the climate catastrophe that we're experiencing today, like the Alameda fire, for example, and the hurricanes in Florida and all the other natural disasters around the world. So basically, the Climate and Clean Air package will pay dividends, and as a Medford resident, I so happen to breathe the smoke that are caused by wildfires elsewhere here in the valley and even in Northern California. So thank you for your time, and thanks for your actions taken today, because future generations will thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Mad Snyder and Susie Garcia, followed by Meredith Overstreet and Brett Thompson.
Hi, my name is Mads. I'm a longtime resident of the Rogue Valley, specifically Medford, and a current student at SOU. In just my short lifetime, I've witnessed climate change and how it has affected our region. The seasons are becoming more extreme, and there's no denying the impact it has had on our communities. Catastrophic events such as the Alameda fire will become more and more common. With the results of the recent election, we know we can't count on federal action to combat climate change in the next 4 years. I know that change starts at the local level, and we need bold local leadership now more than ever. I urge the council to pass the policy package in full. Thank you for your work you've done so far to put this policy on the agenda next month. Your action and the passing of this policy will help ensure that I and my children will have a future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Graham and Ashland City Council. Can you guys
Yes,
hear me
if you,
okay?
there you go.
A little closer.
When your
There we
hand
go.
is in front of there, it blocks it a little bit. There you go.
My name is Susie. I live in Ashland, and I'm here to thank you for all of the work you've put into this ordinance or drafting it, and for all the work that you do every time we're here. I've witnessed a lot of these meetings and see how hard you work. I was an educator for a couple of decades. I'm more recently an organizer with Rogue Climate, but I am also a mother. I have a teenage daughter, and this is the earth that she's going to be inheriting. So I'm invested in this for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, again, I'm here to thank you for all of your work and also to urge you to take a closer look at the policy that the youth, who's been working arduously for 2 years to put together, has really given it a lot of research and a lot of intention behind drafting it. So yeah, I urge you to take a closer look at what it is that they're asking, and to include the policy package components, which include a low NOx emission standard to limit indoor pollution in newly constructed homes, a pollution fee for connecting new homes to gas hookups. The fee must create a fund to support energy efficient upgrades for low-income households. Equity is very important. A provision to stop the expansion of new fossil fuel pipes in right-of-way by the end of 2025. And finally, a resolution to reduce fossil fuels in existing homes and new commercial and industrial buildings in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Meredith Overstreet and Brent Thompson.
Can I go ahead and start? While we wait for him.
No, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Hi, my name is Meredith Overstreet. I live here in Ashland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to address the Madrone Ridge property acquisition. I'm in favor of open recreational space, but I am concerned about how the city of Ashland will be able to afford to manage it after September 2027, when Western River is no longer a partner in this management. It feels a little bit like we're heading back into one of those no plan, no funding, shallow promises to the community. And I know that there's excitement from the council and they love to create this, and it feels like the other incomplete projects with no real secure funding or a strong plan. Promises being made again and again to the community that I'm not observing will ever come to fruition. They will one day, but. My observation is the council gets deep into a commitment, but has a history of no plan, no clear path to secure fundings for long-term management before miraculously moving on to something else. Kind of reminds me of this project that y'all just got into, and that's the office building purchased with not much public notification. It's currently shuttered due to lack of funding, and there's really not a plan, but we still owe money on it. I would like to include the 2 separate properties purchased for Parks and Rec to build more biking trails. And how is that going? And is there any current plan there? And how's the funding going on that? Watching the city move money from one project to another is a little bit spinning. So I hear the little buzzy thing going, but here we go. I feel like there are times where you're giving money to projects, but then you're pulling it back away to move it to somewhere else. And you need it to something else because it's caught your interest to do something new. Stealing from Peter to pay Paul is not fiscally sound.
Your time is up.
Okay, but it will catch up to us all.
Thank you.
I hope that you will focus.
Thank you, Ms. Overstreet.
I think you know where I'm going with this. That
Yes,
we have
thank you for your
other
testimony.
important things to deal with.
Thank
and
you
that's
for your
our
testimony.
Infrastructure demands,
Meredith?
our economic development
Chief.
concerns, and our housing needs. All right, got it.
I take it there's not enough time for me to drone on very long, so I'll make this brief. This is mostly probably directed at administration. The other day I called up to have utilities changed into my name, and I was told I had to do it online. So I don't like that. For decades, I've always been able to call and do it verbally over the phone. So I just want the council to know we can't go in the direction where we have exclusionary filing only online. It's discriminatory to people like me, people who are disadvantaged, et cetera. So I think I got in under a minute and a half. So if anyone wants to talk further about it, I'll be at Martino's lately. The council can adjourn there.
Thank you.
But it's mostly, again, directed at administration. We just can't exclude people by requiring only online filing requirements. Thank you. How did I do on time? Is that okay?
Great, thank you.
All right, good.
We are now to the public hearings section of our agenda. We are to the first reading of Ordinance 3248, an ordinance creating Section 2.28.600 of the Ashland Municipal Code, establishing the Parks and Recreation Department.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you, I provided you a package for the ordinance creating the, establishing the Parks and Recreation Department. We've gone through this on different ways or different matters, but this is a project that's been ongoing for quite some time. In crafting this ordinance, I kind of liken it to the Hippocratic Oath, the first do no harm. We started this really by, I've attempted to craft it in a way that this ordinance is organizationally and operationally using the standard practices that exist or exist now, as opposed to trying to draft something that imposes some kind of new practice or new relationship on the parties. So this ordinance is designed to be compliant with the city charter. It is, which is also in your packet. It is an operational alignment. It is to really solve a number of problems or challenges that the city has had and with working with parks and operating with parks and making sure that their operational process is in alignment. This is also designed to reduce liability for the city, and we'll get into that in a second. And it's also provides hopefully clarity and utilizes the types of putting these into words and putting it into a structure in which it's easily understandable for the city management to understand, as well as the commission. These are kind of governmental challenges that have existed long before I ever started, and that was back in 2011. And they are perennial issues that have of governance that I won't really have much to say about. But when it starts getting into the legal issues, then that's where I start to come into, and that's where my interest really is. So I did my best to keep any policy ideas out of it in terms of how governance should be, but more a policy in terms of how to avoid liability. So in this case, the Parks Commission has charter control over parks, lands, and open space. It has control over management of these lands. Certainly, strategic policy directives is what is where their authority sets. They have control over selection in this ordinance, as well as always as before. They have control over selection of their director, and the director is responsible to the commission's direction to fulfill its strategic planning and its strategic plans. The director is also responsible to the city manager, and the city manager has control over the entire city, and again, in your ordinances, we provide for that. It has, the office of the city manager has the entire city's operations and administration over the entire city, and it fulfills the council's strategic direction, your direction. So in this case, understanding the operations requires specialized skills. It requires specialized understanding or training of the laws, the agreements, and the specifics of administrating a government operation. As you can see, just the audit itself was, as you saw in an earlier program, was a very technical thing. It's something in which you have to have, expansive understanding. And so the commission, for analogy, and I've used this before when I spoke to the Parks Department and the commission, excuse me. The commission is, if you will, the navigator of a ship. The Parks Director is really the captain, and the city manager is the chief engineer in this case. And like all analogies, nothing's perfect, but it's helpful to understand that. And that's the way this ordinance is designed. It's designed to prevent more than one person taking hold of the steering wheel and starting to try to direct the ship according to their own particular ideas and what they want to do. So what we've done is to, well, and for that reason, I think it's pretty obvious. Dual operations, when you have two parties trying to operate the same vehicle or its direction, you end up with greater liability. It doesn't matter whether you avoided the wreck or or one person was responsible for the wreck. Both parties on the wheel are going to be blamed for it. So to that end, this ordinance is threading that needle, trying to clarify what has always been a tension between management and operations, and what is the direction that is the parks is going, and what direction the city is going. And that is, it can be highly technical, and if there's injury, one party is responsible for the operations, and that party is the one responsible that won't be questioning whether or not who was in charge or who wasn't in charge, or if you both are in charge, then you're both liable. And that's what this ordinance, again, is trying to correct. So, you know, it could be as simple as well, it can be as complicated as an employment issue, in which you, again, need to have the kind of expertise and understanding of employment law or labor law or whatever types of issues that you're presented in those types of matters, as well as being simple as someone getting injured on the playground and who was responsible for making sure that the playground equipment was operationally responsible to make sure that the equipment was safe. So again, this is it's always been, as a general rule, a practice that the city operates these types of things, and the commission has been fine in many respects. But when something does go wrong and both are taking responsibility for it, then it becomes more liability. So with that, this ordinance is intended to honor the city charter. It mitigates the legal risks under the Oregon Tort Claims Act. It clarifies the roles and reinforces the united governance structure, protecting the city and the commission, the Parks Commission, from unnecessary liability exposure. I believe that, well, I feel confident that I have been as close and as attentive to the charter that your city has. There may be people that think that somehow that I'm not following the charter, but in fact I have been very careful in looking and following the standard constructions, not omitting words that are there or inserting words that have been omitted, and as well just very carefully been working to make sure that this ordinance is in fact compliant with your charters, compliant with state law, and is in your best interest to have a structure that you're getting with the department.
Thank you. I think it also might be helpful to set some of the context as well as a reminder that this is the next step in the process that we've undertaken for quite some time now. Council Chair Hyatt and I started this process with meetings with APRC Chair Bachman and also Commissioner. Everything okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
And Commissioner Adams, and we really sat down and tried to work through what are the places where there might be confusion and conflict. How might we structure this so that it's clear for everyone what those lanes are and where we come together and where we have autonomy, and through that conversation came to the initial document that we went through in a joint study session with the Parks Commission that the Parks Commission chaired. And so from from that document and the feedback that we received, we asked our legal team to then turn that into ordinance form, with the idea being that we will receive it tonight for first reading. The Parks Commission will review it at their first meeting in January before it comes back to this body for potentially second reading if it passes on first reading this evening. So there's a whole process in that space. And if at the point where we have this ordinance on the books, the plan is to then eliminate the previous MOUs that sort of stack on top of one another and create a lot of that confusion. So that's really where we're at in the process this evening for this first reading of this ordinance. So are there any questions for staff at this point before we open the public hearing?
I could just say too that I took your materials and I very carefully studied those as well. Now,
yes.
Not every single thing goes into that. You know, when you're drafting an ordinance, you like certain things, but I'm taking my legal prerogative to understand that, you know, some things can and cannot work, but to the extent that I could possibly do that, I tried to make sure that all those things that you were trying to put into this ordinance, I've tried to honor that.
We appreciate that.
Okay.
Great. Councillor Kaplan.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just one question, really, and thanks to, I guess, the mayor and Councillor Hyatt and the team from APRC for getting us to this point. And thank you for putting this on the table in a way that's really quite clear. There's one area that I have just a bit of a doubt, though. You talked about the director, Parks and Recreation Director, is responsible to the commission to implement their strategic vision. So I'm wondering if you could clarify for me, what is the role of the Ashland Parks and Commission in actually, you know, enunciating that strategic vision and then identifying long-term financial planning to actually carry out the vision? Is there a role for the commission in long-term financial planning to carry out their vision?
Well, yes. I mean, they just got through putting together a management plan, a parks management plan. That's, to me, is a strategic vision, if one is ever created, as to what you want your parks to be, what lands you want to you want to purchase, or what lands you intend to manage, if you wanted those lands, and how you want those lands managed. It's not up to them to actually do the management or hire the employees to do that management. That is the city's operational aspects of it. But it's a hard to describe what strategic vision is, other than it's you know, to put it in words, it's your plans, it's your, whether you want to have a Japanese park or whether you don't want to have a Japanese park, or if you want to have, you know, what it is. And then it's a matter of convincing, you know, the council as to, you know, whether or not the budget would fit that. Or
So there is a role in the financial planning to pursue that vision. Is that what you're saying?
They've always been involved as far as I could remember, and nothing in this ordinance prevents that from happening.
So I have a question.
So let me see if Sabrina had anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think just from my experience with working the last budget cycle, you know, APRC works with the Parks Director to put together their budget under the direction of the city manager, for what's, you know, all departments are given kind of guidance on what that looks like. They also do their kind of long-term capital planning and financial needs that way. And then that's brought forward to the city manager, just as all departments do, to integrate that into, you know, our biennial budget. And then that's eventually brought to council for approval. So that's been the long kind of standing process with APRC, as I understand it, is they are the ones working with the director to make sure that they are making the requests for the resources that they need with that direction.
So,
follow up.
So that's very helpful, and that actually meshes perfectly with my observation of how it's happened. But I have a specific question then, I guess, about one section in here that talks about legal and financial oversight, and then talks about long-term financial planning. This is 2.28650. Paragraph F, long-term financial planning, which talks about the Parks and Recreation Department working with the city manager and finance director to develop long-term financial strategies and forecasts, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no role there for APRC, and it just seems that consistent with this role that the commission has for long-term strategic planning, that there should be a financial role there as well. It's not operational. It's really about it's about how you implement how you resource a strategy. So I'm wondering if there's maybe a role for APRC in that paragraph.
Well, if you notice, this council isn't mentioned in there either. So the point being is that normally the departments take their direction from their city council, or they take their direction from their commission, and through their city manager and through their parks director, they come up with these strategies. We're trying not to give. You could add a parks commission on that, but you would probably be doing the same thing for the city council as well. And that just kind of, I think it may not be said directly, but that's precisely, this ordinance doesn't stop the commission from being involved in that conversation. But generally, when it gets down to the trying to develop those long-term strategies and how that's going to happen, that's normally given the direction by the city council and by the commission to their representatives to get that done. Now, it's not intended to cut. Let's put it this way: the ordinance is not intended to cut the commission out of that responsibility.
Thank you.
I think that's intended to, we all get our long-term financial forecasts from the finance department. So we have a set, like we're all operating in the same world, if it were, right? We all are getting the same information to make the same decisions about finances.
Councillor Hansen.
Thanks, Mayor. I also read that too, the 2.28.650F. Marion, do you have a second to coordinate on this? I've got a question on this as well. When I first joined the council, there was talk of Ashland Parks and Rec having to go out and, for instance, if the commissioners saw that they wanted to bring a new facility to Ashland, like a big facility, like a pool, like a rec center, the conversation was, how was APRC going to bond on their own to go after this, which seemed like something that we were moving past with the old system, and with the new system, where we're all pulling in the same direction, whether it comes to projects big or small. So my question is in this ordinance, under that section, subheading F, will the commissioners be able to vision some big, hairy, audacious goal like a rec center, like a pool, and be able to work with work with city finance for a potential bond to do a big project like that? They set the course, they set the direction, and then the city moves forward with its budgeting processes, with council approval and all that. But we're all working together to bond based on the city's bondability, not just the parks and their assets. This is like the whole city pulling together for something that APRC and the community wants. That's how it works, right? Is that how it works?
Well, full disclosure, I have not prepared myself on this ordinance, but that said, to answer your question, the city is under one credit rating. And there is no separation between any of the funds other than their, enterprise funds have their own revenue stream, and depending on the borrower, they might be able to secure a borrowing based on their revenue stream. But as it is with parks, they are not. They are part of the general fund, and therefore part of any long-term borrowing plan that the city would be embarking upon. It would have to be in conjunction with our strategic plan for borrowing and cash flow.
I take that to hear that parks commissioners will it, then we go figure it out, and we have a budgetary process, and then council approval, and then we go forward and do what we want to do as a city.
So I think just a point of clarification, it's, the city can bond a general obligation bond for, general fund items. It would be, APRC bringing it forward to council and then council pushing that forward. That is that process. So yes, APRC can, vision the pool and we can work with them to make that happen, or, insert project here.
Right.
That's the process. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
And once again, this ordinance does not prevent that from happening.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Doug. So let me see if I can just simplify this down just a little bit here. Relative to the first part of this, specifically the long-term planning, as I understand the way we read ordinances is unless it specifically limits something, it's permissive by nature. So unless we said no to something and that was in contradiction with the charter, then the charter would prevail. So even though it's not specifically delineated here, there is no restriction to APRC because they're not listed. That's my first question?
Well, it's normally, if you're going to if you're going to try to do something and it's outside your authority, then it has to be written in there to say you have that authority. Correct. Now, in this case, the recreation department is part of the commission. The commission is part of the recreation department. So when you're talking about the recreation department and you're talking about the parks director, it's like saying the city, and you guys are oftentimes referred to as a city. I mean, it's when the city makes a decision. It's the council making the decision. When the parks makes the decision, it's the parks making the decision. And so when the Parks and Recreation Department shall work with the city manager, like in this case, when we're talking about the long-term financial planning, you're talking implicitly about the commission. The commission is not cut out.
Thank you. And just to follow up to, like we were just talking to what Councilor Hanson was saying, this is when the budget is created as visioned by, this is no different from, in some respects, it's no different from like our fire department, where the fire department works with the city manager and they figure out what they're going to do for fire. In this case, Parks gets together by way of a director, but they also have a 5-member elected body that actually provides input, oversight, strategy, all of that. At the end of the day, it rolls back up. So to Councilor Hanson's point, let's just take a pool or a rec. If the commission decides that they want to pursue something like this, like a pool, that would go into the budget. It would be a line item so that if they were to ever, meaning the city of Ashland chooses to secure funding for that, there is a line item in a budget so that we could pursue that. But at the end of the day, just like purchasing a fire truck, purchasing a pool comes from the city of Ashland general fund, which is part of the budget process, which is appropriated by council.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So I'll go ahead and open the public forum or the public hearing. We have 2 people who have signed up to speak, Rick Lant and Michael Gardner. If you can both please come up, you'll each have 3 minutes. Alyssa will give you a single chime when you have 20 seconds left and a double chime when your 3 minutes is complete. And both of the microphones are on. Mr. Lant, if you can start.
Actually, I'm going to start if that's
Actually,
okay, Mayor.
Mr. Lant is written here first.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors.
If you can get in a little closer to that microphone, pull it towards you a little bit.
I want to acknowledge the lofty intent of this ordinance and the work that's went into getting it to this point. However, since one of our goals is a positive working relationship between the City Council and Park Commissioners, it seems politic that commissioners would review the draft ordinance that is specifically entirely about parks at a public meeting and provide input before first reading of the ordinance. A couple of commissioners have had input, but not the full commission. Please postpone the first reading to allow for this. One of the consequences of limited vetting is a draft ordinance with what to me seem like deficiencies. I'll give you 3 examples. Section 2.28.620 lists functions of the Park and Recreation Department. All the functions listed are managerial and should be listed under 2.28.600, which is the Park and Recreation Director duties. Section 2.28.640B2 outlines steps in the director termination process where Commission and Council does not agree. As outlined, the director's employee rights are compromised if they ultimately are not terminated, because the Commission is by ordinance required to publicly state that the director is not being terminated. If the Commission chooses not to terminate in executive session, they should be silent publicly, with the Commission chair communicating privately to the mayor and council. Then, if council decides in the executive session to override and terminate, they would vote that in a public meeting. If they choose not to terminate, the matter stays internal and private. Why would a director be publicly called out as not terminated, potentially leading to unwarranted speculation? Section 2.28.650D says, quote, "The City Council shall maintain authority over the approval of all financial matters related to Parks and Recreation Department." Couldn't this in the future be interpreted to mean all purchases, no matter the amount, would have to be approved by City Council? Not as a criticism, but as a suggestion. That is I think that the name of the entity, the department, should, the name Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission, APRC, was created as a branding of an entity, not the Parks Commissioners, but it has over time been used to mean both, creating continuing confusion. In the two instances where APRC is referenced in the city charter, one instance refers to the commissioners and the other instance refers to the organization department. I have a short paragraph.
Yes, go ahead.
The ordinance is an opportunity to reduce confusion. I suggest that the ordinance call the department Ashland Parks and Recreation Department, and the commissioners collectively, consistent with numerous city charter references, the Park Commission. Thank you. That's all that fits in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. And I appreciate the fact that 3 of the councilors brought up some information that I had sent out to the council and staff this past weekend. Let me first recognize I understand the amount of energy that's gone into creating this ordinance, and I appreciate all the work that councilors and staff and the commissioners have done. Second, I have to admit that I understand the reason behind this ordinance, and risk to the city should be and is important to all elected officials. So, personally, I get it, and I think we should all understand that. Third, I wanted you to know that I'm not complaining, because I read recently that complaining can be bad for your health. It raises the cortisol stress hormone and gives you high blood pressure and high blood sugar. So we don't need that. However, I believe that it's important for the council and staff to hear the concerns of the other elected body and try to understand how this legislation will affect the future operation of the Parks and Recreation Department. I think you get that, and the questions that you asked I appreciate and show me that you're as concerned as the commission is about how this ordinance will play out. I'm asking you to possibly step back and consider the concerns that have been raised. As Commissioner Lawrence said, maybe you don't take the first reading tonight. I'm not sure. But interestingly enough, I received my commissioner training manual last night, and stuck in the binder was a sheet that was entitled Local Government Words of Wisdom. So I read it. Number 4 was, the council has a right to make a bad decision, but they should never make an uninformed decision. And I think you are informed. You're drilling down on the ordinance. Other eyes have looked at the ordinance, and we're just bringing some things up to you to make sure that we get the best possible ordinance that we can get. So this is why I'm asking you to consider options in the language maybe before you do the first reading, but at least, consider that when you decide that the first reading is good enough and you're going to pass it on. Ultimately, your council will make the decision that you want. I'm just not convinced that this ordinance in its current form should be the ordinance that you want. So just consider that. I appreciate all your work, and I think there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of this. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. So are there other questions for staff? I have a question. On 2.28.640, where under C, where it says the APRC shall then hold a formal vote. Under 2C,
Okay, got it.
under the termination process, so under B, 2C.
Yeah.
Under C, it says the APRC shall then hold a formal vote. Would it be possible to make that may? Because I think there's a clear point that says the commission shouldn't be compelled to go out into a public conversation if they don't want to.
That's fine.
Yes. Yes, that's fine.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, because, for our process, we would have an executive session, would come to an idea if we wanted to terminate somebody, let's say the city manager in our position. If we decided to do so, we would be required to come out and make a public vote. If we didn't decide to go forward, we just don't do anything at all. So I don't see how there's anything in here that's requiring them to publicly state we're not going to terminate.
I think that that's what I'm trying to get to, is in that C section where it says it reads as though following that you have the executive session and then the APRC shall then hold a formal vote regardless of whether they were moving forward to terminate or not. And I think putting the may in there reinforces that it really depends on whether they want to move forward, as you mentioned, as a council would with a city manager.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And my only concern would be that may also could imply that if they did decide to terminate, they don't have to make a public vote. So I would suggest that
they still need to make a public vote.
So executive session rules would still have to be followed. And so if, just as if you decide to terminate me and a decision made in there, you have to come out and make a formal vote on it. So that would kind of supersede
that. Supersedes it.
Yep.
Okay, comfortable.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. So the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hansen?
Thanks, Mayor. I move to approve first reading of ordinance number 3248, an ordinance creating section 2.28.600 of the Ashland Municipal Code establishing the Parks and Recreation Department, and schedule second reading for January 21st, 2025 with the change from Mayor Graham.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councillor Hansen?
Yeah, I just appreciate the collaboration between the APRC Parks Commissioners and our council mayor and liaison, Representative Hyatt. Thank everybody for coming to the table to get this foundational ordinance going. I look forward to its reading at the Parks Commission and input from the Parks Commission, and I just want to build on that work that's already been done, and I look forward to hearing back. And I just thank everybody for their patience. Again, going back to that premise that we are better together and all pulling in the same direction, we're going to achieve more of the goals that we want, that this community needs, serving our recreational, economic development, livability, equity, senior services, all the great things that the city and the parks do. So I just thank everybody for getting us thus far, and I look forward to the next reading.
Councillor Hyatt?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank the team, Commissioner Bachman, Commissioner Adams, and also at the joint session, I felt too that Commissioner Lant had exceptional input there, and I was really appreciative for that insight. If I were in January, I would continue to be open to the insight and the feedback that comes out of the the discussion from the APRC meeting, and I'm confident that this body will be open to that. And it is for that reason, with the change to 2.28.640B2C, changing shall to may, that I am happy to support the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you. Thank you. I too agree. I support this. I am glad that we don't have to wordsmith it any longer. So I do support this, and I do thank everyone who came to the table. I think it's important for the continuity of parks in the city. I think it's important for the clarity, accountability, and which was touched on, liability that we've had. I believe it's good that this is passed and we can move forward. So I support this ordinance. Look forward to the second reading.
All right, I will close the public hearing. And if there is no other discussion, roll call, please, Alyssa.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Thank you. And next, we have the first reading of Ordinance 3252, amending 14.16.015 to allow for conservation measures.
Hello, Mayor and Council. The city legal team is bringing forward this amendment to the to our utility code. This amendment clarifies that except for when the city council appropriates a transfer to the general fund, the electric fund may be used for several conservation measures, including energy efficiency upgrades, renewable energy installations, and other energy conservation measures that would enhance the system's reliability, reduce operational costs, decrease demand on the electric system, or support the city's energy use goals. Currently, the ordinance is very focused on limiting the electric fund to be just for operations, and in alignment with the city's conservation goals, this will allow the city to have just a limited security interest in just the electric fund, versus if we want to invest in these kind of operations, we would otherwise kind of be forced to have a full faith and credit, which is kind of interesting in the sense of that was actually that came up. Our finance director, Marion Berry, just talked about it in a different context, where so this allows the city to have a little bit more control over our finances while supporting our energy goals.
Are there questions? Okay, I will open the public hearing. We have two people who have signed up to speak to us this evening, Paul Mozina and Noah Wertheiser. Or actually, not Noah yet. Noah, you're coming up for something a little bit later. So just Paul Mozina. Paul, you'll have 3 minutes, and you'll receive a chime at 20 seconds and then another one at the 3-minute mark. And if Sabrina, you can help us with that, great, thank you. And please tell us your name and the city you live in before you start your testimony. Thank you.
My name is Paul Mozina. I live in Ashland. Neither the introductory text nor the ordinance amendment clearly explains what is being done. Rather, we see a resort to demagoguery in the fallacious pretense that this has something to do with addressing climate change. The vague references to, quote, limiting the obligation to solely the electric fund, quote, and reducing reliance on the full faith and credit backing of the city are incomprehensible to most people. What do you mean, in simple terms, by claiming this will, quote, help the city more easily onboard the anticipated USDA RESP loan, quote? The fiscal impacts do not even explain that a first priority lien is being placed on the electric revenue to secure the $10 million loan. The amendment states, quote, electric revenues may also be expended in connection with improving, maintaining, and expanding electric system capacity, quote. This is redundant, as the ordinance already approves the usage of the fund for, quote, payment for alteration, improvements, additions, or extensions, quote, to the electric system. The new part of the amendment is that it allows using the funds for, quote, investments in energy efficiency upgrades, renewable energy installations, and other energy conservation measures on customers' properties, quote. The amendment does not explain that the electric revenue would be used to secure the $10 million USDA Rural Energy Savings Program loan. If the purpose of the amendment is to, quote, help the city more easily onboard the anticipated USDA RESP loan, quote, then it should be explicitly limited to that purpose, i.e., if a borrower defaults on their home improvement loan, that debt will be covered by the revenues received by the Ashland Electric's that will be covered by the revenues received from Ashland Electric's customers. The debt will be covered by the customers. As it is written, the amendment allows unlimited usage of electric funds to improve the energy efficiency of customer homes. Ashland Electric customers would be subsidizing the energy conservation improvements on their neighbors' homes. This is socialism. People assume that Ashland Electric utility rates are as low as necessary to support the system. This ordinance opens the door wide for a completely new purpose. There is nothing in the ordinance tying it to the electric fund balance. What if major improvements to the system are needed and the fund has been recklessly depleted to, quote, address the climate crisis? Yes, the Ashland Electric fund balance is the Ashland Electric fund balance is a tempting morsel for the mayor and council to nibble on. But how about reducing our electric rates rather than continuing to overcharge us and then turn around and give the excess revenue to a select few to raise the values of their properties in the interest of, quote, addressing the climate crisis? Thank you.
Thank you. If you can, are there any additional questions of staff? Okay. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Kaplan?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance 3252, amending 14.16.015 to allow for conservation measures.
Is there a second? Okay. Councillor Kaplan?
No, I think this is housekeeping measures and consistent with the discussion that we had just 2 weeks ago about the rural energy savings program, right? Yeah. So I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. I am in complete agreement with Councillor Kaplan. In addition, just to say that we have all kinds of, we have many structural processes in place, such as our electric master plan, such as our budgeting process, such as the department oversight, that this is in fact a housekeeping. But for anybody who might be worried about it, there's plenty of structure and oversight and transparency in place. I feel comfortable with this.
Councillor Hansen?
Thank you, Mayor. I have an actual conflict of interest in this as a solar contractor, so I will be recusing myself from discussion and vote.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Thank you. So we are now, we're about to go to the next item, but I want us to take a very short break to just get a little bit of a little break before we move into these other options. And I do need to close the public hearing from the previous ordinance discussion, so I've done that. And then let's make sure that we are back. I will put us back into motion at 8:15 by that clock.
15, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I know we're tight on time.
I should have.
Yeah, I did. I want to see it here. It's a demanding
time on the dinger.
Yeah, well, and then the roll call was like one after real quick.
Too good time to hide.
Hey, try not to let anybody use that thing.
Well, you know, I know.
Serena's dangerous in that position. We like these there.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. No, that's okay. Until I heard your name, I was like, oh my God, that's you. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I just retired in arts council. Now I just do project management, work on inclusive road retreat, and I'm here tonight because I was in the management advisory committee. He's somewhere in the back listening. How you doing? Close to retirement? Yeah, you just stick with the legal and stay out of politics. And
Alyssa, I have a quick question. Yes. So the climate clean air package?
Yes.
Where is that?
So it's on January 21st.
I know, but where's the actual packet? I wanted to start.
Oh,
reading the
I have no
ordinance.
idea. It's not put together yet.
Oh, okay, all right. So I should ask
But you can
Bob.
ask Chad Woodward.
Oh, okay, I'll email him.
Yeah.
Good, thank
Yeah,
you.
Counselor. Okay, we are back to ordinances, resolutions, and contracts. Second reading of ordinance 3253, amending AMC 10.120 ELEA to add Cap East.
Good evening, Ty O'Mara, Police Chief. Legal and police are bringing back the requested enhanced law enforcement area ordinance for the second reading, and legal has some requested and potential suggested edits that she will get into.
So my recommendation is I will read those out, and then I'll briefly describe the changes from the first reading and open it up to the council. For ordinance number 3253, starting with the most substantive changes, starting in 10.120.020. A person commits the crime of persistent violation if the person is convicted in Ashland Municipal Court or other court of competent jurisdiction for any combination of the following crimes or violations occurring in separate incidences solely within Elia West or solely within Elia East within a 6-month period, provided that convictions in Elia West and Elia East shall be separate and distinct, with each Elia subject to its own applicable expulsion order. No changes were made to any of the relevant crimes or violations that would be subject to. Moving on to section B of that same section, the person knowingly enters the particular Elia area in violation of the municipal court expulsion order as a term of the person's probation or a court expulsion order pursuant to AMC 10.125.010. Moving on to section 10.120.040, misdemeanor classification presumptive penalty. Moving on to section B, unless reasonable cause exists to order otherwise, upon a finding of persistent violation under 10.120.020, the court shall enter a judgment expelling the person from the applicable Elia as defined in AMC 10.120.010B for a period of not less than 3 months and not more than 1 year. Any judgment that includes an expulsion shall also include the following exceptions to the terms of the expulsion from the applicable Elia. 1, the expelled person is present in the Elia for more than one of the following activities. Subsection a, to actively address or remedy the subject offense if ordered to do so by the court, performing official governmental business or attend public meetings. Subsection b, to actively pursue or obtain social, medical, pharmaceutical, groceries, or other services reasonably deemed related to the needs of the person not otherwise available outside of the applicable Elia. Subsection c, to actively secure or maintain lawful employment or to attend registered educational services. Section 2, the expelled person is actively traveling through the applicable Elia. For Elia West, this travel exception is limited to those traveling in a vehicle or on a public transit while using necessary street or highway to reach a destination outside of the Elia West area. Section C, upon a showing of good cause, the court may enter an order limiting the exception set forth in AMC 10.120.040B regarding the expelled person's ability to enter the particular Elia that is the subject of the expulsion order. So to clarify why I read it out is because to the extent there would be any dispute, if there was a substantive change, I wanted to comply with the city's ordinance instruction that upon a second reading, if there's a substantive change, it should be read out. So to clarify why I kind of went through that process. The other changes involved were to make it very clear throughout the ordinance that Elia West and Elia East are separate and distinct. And
if this passes, then it'll be on the city's obligation. It'll be the city's obligation to make sure we follow through with that administratively. I also made a clarification that if a person is convicted, I added the language that if a person is convicted in another court of competent jurisdiction. Currently, my understanding of when this ordinance was first passed, there was a lot of kind of discussion that making sure that only crimes in the ILEA are the ones being considered. And so, but I think one thing that maybe in practice got missed in that is that its plain reading created a little ambiguity where a conviction in Jackson County Circuit Court, which is the only court that hears felonies, for example, or more serious misdemeanors, we don't consider those in the ILEA expulsion framework just by the language saying a person is convicted in Ashland Municipal Court. Because Ashland Municipal Court, by its very, because it's a court, not a court of record, it is not allowed to hear felony convictions. So you can commit a robbery in ILEA, and that is not currently subject to the ILEA expulsion. So it's a clarification.
So we have a question. Is now an appropriate time on that particular item? Councilor Hyatt.
Thank you. Carmel, thank you. When you were going through that explanation, the first part of the explanation made it sound like someone convicted of a felony anywhere within Ashland. And I just want, but then the second half you said within the ILEA. So I just want to make sure we are crystal clear that it would be a felony within ILEA East, and then it would have to be according to the ILEA East rules. Well, they're the same rules, and then separately if it was within ILEA West.
Yes, I think that is very clear. And also that would be, you have to keep in mind that this is a criminal complaint. So part of the city's obligation in proving its case to the judge or to a jury is to prove that in fact this crime happened in ILEA East or ILEA West to even justify a conviction on it and enforcement of it later on.
Great. Did you have anything else for your presentation, Carmel?
The only other thing is that, and this was the bigger change, is that in the last, is that I shifted the obligation, the judicial obligation. I did some burden shifting. I shifted the obligation where a court is really expected to allow for these exceptions, even if someone's expelled, that they can still go in for pharmaceutical, for medical, if they are actively doing so. And so same thing, as I mentioned before, that would be in the state's case, that we have to prove to a judge and to a jury that the person is, if they're in violation of the expulsion, what that could look like is someone's expelled, they're hanging out, officer sees them there for 15 minutes, not actively going into the pharmacy. That could be the facts that the city can bring forth for that. So it was a burden shifting, but I don't think it changed the substance of it. And in fact, I think it actually kind of memorializes what Ashland's been doing for some time. And this was a clarification I didn't have at the last council meeting. But a practice of Judge Turner was to always put in her judgments, you can still go into the ILEA if, and then the old language. So,
Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carmel. I have a question looking at the top of page 2, dog license required or.
What's your question, Counselor?
My question, it says, I'm looking at FAMC 9.16.015, dog license required or.
I think that the language just got, it's dog license, this is a list, so any
Yeah.
one of these, dog license required or use of marijuana, or open containers, or consumption.
So.
Just shows that it's not a inclusive list, it's any of
Either
these
or.
lists.
And so because I thought, before when we looked at this, I don't want to belabor it. However, dog license, somebody can
I get
get
it.
cited if their dog doesn't have a license.
Again, this is the current language that has been in place for years and years, and that was council's direction to bring back the current ELEA language. It is our intention when we come back in February to remove that one if the conversation around making it multiple violations and officer discretionary expulsion, to remove that. When I said that there were some miscalculations and missteps in us bringing this to council, that was part of that. But it has been part of the ELEA language for several years, and that was direction. I would note that this language is all multiple convictions and then judicial expulsion. So it's not just somebody gets a ticket for having a dog without a license and they're expelled. It's multiple qualifying convictions in this court, and then the judge expels them. And that is how it has been for years downtown.
Oh, I just wanted to say, because I see at the top it says control, dogs controlled required.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying about the license, but when I look at the individuals that might be impacted by this, and a lot of people, I mean, my dog is my family, so I just kind of.
Yeah, and we were trying, knowing that it's going, knowing that further review is going to happen in study session, I kind of tried to have as limited of a scope for right now. I feel good about this ordinance, that it's in a good spot where the council can approve. Having said that, I understand that that's a feedback and one of many feedback, points of feedback that we were thinking would be part of the conversation going forward.
Well, I appreciate your work on it. I just wanted to question that. I know it's going to come back. Thanks.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to, clarify a couple of things. One, I mean, I think that there's the one conversation around dog licenses, absolutely with control. I read that to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but that's about having dogs on a leash, which is already something that somebody could be cited for, unless, of course, they're in a dog
Where-
park. And that, I
yeah.
think that that's a public safety issue, of course,
Yeah.
not only for us animals, but also our little animals.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also important to add that there's a 60-day period before this goes into effect. This takes us into mid-February. And again, when you're considering that it's multiple violations, I don't think that really anybody's going to be affected by this. This is about us putting a placeholder in so that we can start building on that over the
Yeah,
coming
I
months.
just wanted to bring it back to the attention. I appreciate Chief O'Mara mentioning that it will come back in February. I just wanted it to be on our radar. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Councillor Kaplan.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I have a question about the, I guess it's the two, the expelled person actively traveling through the applicable ELEA. Could you, and then there's a distinction on how that's applied in ELEA West versus ELEA East. Could you explain that? It's a little confusing.
Yeah, given that ELEA East is the non-downtown part of town is a lot bigger, I wanted to create basically a travel exception. The difference between ELEA West is that you can travel through you don't have to go through the downtown. There's to travel freely, but we wanted to make sure that if you're traveling in the east side, that someone wouldn't get cited if they're actively traveling through.
If I can add to that, Counselor, Well, we recognize that there's a difference. There's just a fundamental difference. There's a lot of hitchhikers out on 66. There's a lot of people that are making their way through that area to get on I-5, to go towards Klamath Falls, up Dim Road, or what have you. And that's not so much the case downtown. So we wanted to delineate between people who are on foot in Cap East and making their way, because that's the culture that we have, that there's a lot of hitchhiking, there's a lot of on-foot mobility, and that is not necessarily applicable in the downtown area. That's part of that delineation.
So really, it's about people that are pausing on the way out because they're hitchhiking. They're not just driving through. This is not applicable to somebody that's happens to be driving through. Would the police, under this ordinance, if somebody's expelled from one of these areas, without this exception, stop somebody for driving through when they're not?
No, under no circumstances is somebody driving through going to get stopped, not in Cap East or Cap West. And under this language in Cap East, somebody walking through without pausing is not going to get
It's not going
stopped.
to get stopped through either.
So 3 people have signed up to talk with us this evening. Let's go ahead and bring them forward. The first 2 are Noah Wertheiser and Debbie Neiswander, followed by Eric Navikas. Each of you will have 3 minutes. Please say your name and where you are living, and then start your testimony. Alyssa will give you a single chime at 20 seconds and a final chime at 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Noah Wertheiser. I live here in Ashland. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'd like to share a few concerns regarding the proposed second enhanced law enforcement area exclusion zone. For the sake of time, I'm going to limit it to just 2 of my primary points. First, during the recent council study session, Chief O'Mara and staff gave a very informative presentation on the data showing a decrease in specific criminal complaints between 2017 and 2024. My concern lies in the 5 years prior to this time frame that the ordinance was in effect, which were not represented in the graph. Without a complete understanding of the complaint trends in the downtown area before 2017, or even an analysis of what other strategies may have contributed to these results, I worry that council isn't seeing a full picture of the ELEA's overall effectiveness. Second, while the statistics may show a decrease in criminal complaints during 2017 to 2024, in the first ELEA, my understanding is that there has been a reciprocal steady increase in similar complaints in the proposed new zone. While I cannot definitively say why that shift has occurred, it raises serious concerns that an enhanced law enforcement area may simply be pushing the problem to adjacent streets, rather than addressing the root causes of the issue. This approach may really be treating the symptoms of the problem and not the actual problem itself. Given these uncertainties, I don't think I could make an informed determination on this ordinance without a better picture of the data if it were me on the bench. If you too lack the clarity on these matters, I would strongly urge you to reconsider moving forward with such a significant decision, one that places a heavy restriction on the movement of individuals in this great city. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Debbie Neiswander, and I'm an Ashland resident. And I forgot my whole file, all my paperwork, so I'm winging it tonight, okay? I'm against the ELEA. I think it's premature. I know you've gotten a lot of feedback on it. I wish you would have put something in the city website to where people can ask questions and you can all provide answers like we did with the 2200 building when that came about. I understand that the goal is to address bad behavior, not status. I've heard that over and over. I get that. But, you know, what are the pros, the cons, the unintended consequences? And you're showing here that there's no fiscal impact. but there is. Those jail beds are $110 a day. Okay, and the effectiveness. How effective has it been? In my research that I'm doing, in 2024, I'm showing there's 25 different individuals who have been cited for persistent violations, okay, for being in the ELIA once they've been excluded. There's one individual who has been cited between 15 and 17 times, okay? A lot of these folks are chronic alcoholics, okay? They're not on board. They don't know boundaries, okay? The whole goal of the 2200 and the Master Plan Committee was to come up with a variety of solutions to address some of these problems. And one of those things is outreach, okay? We need to figure how to navigate and get some of these individuals into treatment, okay? Excluding them isn't going to help, and it's actually going to exacerbate the problem. So I would like to look at the effectiveness a little more, and I think we need to research our outreach opportunities, and we need to get that social service position going. You know, like I said, this is a little premature, and I think we need to think it out a little bit more, and I hope you're on board with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Navickas?
Yeah, Eric Navickas, Ashland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue again.
Oh, Eric, if you can push that button.
Oh, okay. Great.
There you go.
Okay. So the claim is that this is not targeting a specific demographic group, but the record shows otherwise. In your homeless services assessment report, it clearly says, talks about triaging and managing homelessness, and immediate actions are development of the enhanced law enforcement area or the exclusion zone on Ashland Street. And it's in a section titled Cleaning Up Unsightly Areas. And this is from your November 18th study session where you clearly discussed that this is about homeless issues. So it's a little difficult to believe that this is not targeting a specific demographic group when the record shows otherwise clearly. The material impact here, like was already brought up, you're moving people around. They were downtown, you're moving them to the south end of town. Now where do they go? Into residential zones? You really think that's going to be effective in calming some of the critical issues around conflicts with members of our community? Putting people into residential zones is going to create more problems and serious fire risks as well. Again, you have a breadth of offenses, and you could claim that this isn't about targeting homeless people, but it really gives a broad discretion to our officers to target these people. So I'd like to go over the history of exclusion in our society. These go back to the 14th century in Great Britain, vagrancy laws, basically, and these were carried over into the colonies in America. And they were called warning outlaws, where they could really target homeless people or vagrants and move them out of town. These were continued through the colonial era through settlement acts, expanding these vagrancy laws to protect the citizens against moral pestilence of paupers and vagabonds. Then we go into the 30s and 40s. We had anti-Okie laws. After the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, there were a breadth of laws targeting Okies and transporting Okies. And finally, a case, Edwards versus California, found these laws unconstitutional, and it also ruled against other vagrancy laws. Jim Crow laws continued to remove people from public spaces. These targeted the freed slaves. Finally, these were ended with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Brown versus the Board of Education. These are landmark issues, and what you're doing right now is continuing this legacy of these very discriminatory laws. Ugly laws. The city of Portland was especially critical in this. Portland and Chicago were the two cities to first pass ugly laws, and these were, like Ashland's, based on behavior. And these were targeting crippled people and maimed people or to form people for begging in the streets, and it was specific to begging behavior. And then again, sundown laws, and Ashland was a sundown town, I'm sorry. And, you know, we're continuing this legacy, and it's really sad to see this community move forward with these type of very discriminatory and bigoted ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional questions for staff? Okay. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom?
Yes, I move approval of second reading of Ordinance 3253, amending AMC 10.120, Elia to add Cap East, including the changes as presented.
Second.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, it's, you know, we've been discussing this, obviously, a second reading. I really look forward to the future conversations we have about forming a kind of just a consistent singular ordinance moving forward over the next couple of months. I'm very confident in the data that's been shown. I feel like we are making an informed decision. This is very much about behaviors. The way I look at it, when we talk about folks that maybe don't understand boundaries, my 3.5-year-old doesn't understand boundaries. And what do? I create systems around it to correct certain behaviors. And this is a step in that direction. So I support this.
Councillor Dale?
I agree with that. Thank you.
Councillor Calvin? We have all three of you in.
I think Gina was.
1, 2, 3.
Go ahead, Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you. I too support this. I thank everyone for the work around this and some of the things that were mentioned earlier, moving forward in the 2200 area and that work that ad hoc committee did to look at ways to look at the core of the behavior. So we have to start somewhere. I think this all links us up together to get to the core of the behavior and to be able to work with our community and to have safety for everyone in the community. So I support this.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yes, thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the staff for bringing back those changes that we discussed at the last reading. I voted no on the first reading because I'm not satisfied with the quality of the analysis that we've been given to support this proposal. I believe good policy analysis starts with a clear definition of the problem, followed by a careful weighing of alternatives based on evidence of what works, and a clear description of the outcome we expect to achieve with the proposed policy. We've got none of that. What we've received instead, as I said last time, is a graph with citations in Cap East over the last 6 years showing serious crimes of theft, assault, and drugs essentially flat over the time period, comparable to Cap West. The graph also shows minor violations, like those listed in the ordinance, were essentially flat until 2021, when they started to trend upwards. We've also been told 19 individuals have been cited 3 or more times since January 1st. We haven't been told what's happened this year in Cap West, but there were 9 expulsions. We were told there were 9 expulsions in 2023 in Cap West, up significantly from just 1 in 2022 and 3 in 2021. So something seems to be happening there too. We've been given a single policy option to apply the same framework that, quote unquote, worked downtown. But the evidence from downtown is incomplete at best. I've already mentioned, and we heard today from one of the speakers, well, I've already mentioned the significant increase in expulsions from downtown in 2023 compared with the prior 2 years. That certainly bears some further exploration. As we heard from one of the speakers, we've been shown a decline in complaints downtown since 2017 to show that ELIA works. But downtown ELIA was established in 2012, and the chief told us that in 2017 was the high point. So since the complaints increased for 5 years after the ELIA was established, I'm not clear how the graph demonstrates the ELIA's effectiveness. If we see complaints rising in Cap East over the next few years, will we say it's succeeding? I hear folks concerned about what they're seeing along certain sections of Ashland Street, and I want to emphasize that I don't condone these kinds of behaviors that they're complaining about. But I'm not convinced that establishing an expulsion zone will solve the problem. So I'm going to vote against this second reason too. I've asked for better data repeatedly, and if this ordinance passes this evening, I hope the council will join me in requesting regular reports on complaints, citations and convictions in the two Elias as well as other parts of Ashland so we can clearly identify the problem and track whether or not these measures are working. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work that's been put into this. I echo the statements from Ms. Nicewander that we need more treatment, more outreach, and more social services. And I believe that we can do better. I think that this ordinance, however, will move the needle for residents of South Ashland, for businesses of South Ashland. I just read an account of interactions that happened to a family at Albertsons, and I've seen this. I have lived experience of this interaction played out by different individuals at a different time. But it was not the person walking their unlicensed dog that we're worried about. It's the people held up time and time again in front of a business with aggressive dogs, consuming substances, scattering rubbish, and making it hard for families and individuals and businesses to operate and navigate. I'm worried about the violence on our unhoused population. I'm not convinced that we need to do more than this, but I'm looking forward to February 3rd to get more data, to get more insights before we do anything else. This is a judicial review, and I believe that our municipal court and Judge Mulkins will become familiar with these issues and these individuals, and we can do better for South Ashland with this ordinance. This is the starting place, and I feel like this is the least we can do with the least amount of harm to benefit the greatest good. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting it. I'm not excited about it, but I'm looking forward to rolling up our sleeves and getting deeper into the weeds in February. And I echo also Councillor Kaplan's request for more information, more data, and more investigation into this. Thank you.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Kaplan,
No.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
And is council interested in providing direction to staff to come back with regular data reports in terms of what's happening in terms of violations in the new ELIA? Is that of interest?
Yeah, I would hope that would be part of our February 3rd study session.
So we can start, let's make sure that that's a part of the conversation for the study session, is that we'll talk about what those data needs will be. Councillor Hanson.
That's great. I was excited to see Judge Mulkins' first judicial report upon his swearing in and first month. I would like to see more in-depth data relative to these ELIAs in that report.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it when we bring it back together in February. So Sabrina, I have a question for you. In terms of timing, I think there's still a decent chance that we'll get all the way through this agenda tonight, but I want to make sure that we touch on the time-specific ones, which the community center I know is a time-specific. What about the apparatus purchase?
Yes, I would just go in the order. Apparatus should be 5 minutes, hopefully, at most. Just a hint on that one. And then the community center.
But the community center is absolutely needed tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
And the apparatus is
Also needed.
also needed tonight.
And recognition of Councillor Hyatt is also needed. So those are the three.
Well, yes, I know that there's more things on the list here, but in terms of both of those are needed tonight?
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to the apparatus purchase.
Might I suggest that we maybe punt the appreciation for the next meeting, so Councillor Hyatt can just have a serial meeting and just keep coming back.
You might have to issue a warrant.
Chief's here, we could do that.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so let's see if we can get through these next couple of items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Shea, Fire Marshal. here this evening to discuss the contract to purchase a aerial ladder truck, and we will make this a quick presentation. Ashland has a significant amount of buildings that would be difficult, if not impossible, to access with ground ladders, fire service ground ladders. Examples of those would be some of the SOU student housing, some of the larger buildings on the Ashland High School campus, as well as many of the buildings on the plaza and some of the larger homes in the hillside neighborhoods. In firefighting, ladders are used for an important part of our strategy and our tactics. They're used for rescue as well as firefighting. Currently, we're reliant on the City of Medford's aerial ladder truck within our city. An example of that would be the 2022 Plaza Fire, where we requested the Medford ladder truck, and their response time was 17 minutes from Medford. This was in ideal conditions on a sunny day with perfect weather when the crew was at their station ready to respond. That ladder truck does respond to all sorts of emergencies out of their station area. So there could be an instance when they are tied up on a traffic accident or a medical call, the weather's adverse, and that response is a bit more delayed. On our last ISO evaluation in Ashland, we had reduced ISO points for ladder operations, and that was primarily because we don't have our own aerial ladder. ISO will award full points if the truck is within 2.5 miles of the response area being City of Ashland. The City of Medford's truck is stationed 11.4 miles from the plaza as a point of reference. ISO calls for a standard response to a structure fire, including a ladder truck, and ISO will also award full points for a 100-foot ladder truck or sufficient height to reach any building, whichever is less. With our ground ladders, currently we're limited to our 24-foot ground extension ladders. That limits our ability to perform firefighting and rescue operations to about 2 stories. In this photo of Shasta Hall, we have a 24-foot ground ladder extended, and you can see that for the 3rd and 4th stories, it would be impossible to perform a rescue, and it would be very difficult to perform any firefighting from that ground ladder. This truck, if purchased, will replace one of our current fire engines, one of our current first out fire engines. It will not be an additional piece of apparatus. And the truck that is spec'd out has the capabilities of our current fire engines plus the ladder on top. So we would be able to continue to provide the service that we are now with the addition of the ladder. This particular model has a wheelbase that is similar to our current engines, so it'll be able to navigate around town as we are now. Not going to be a bigger ladder that's more cumbersome. This model also has a minimized use of outriggers. And outriggers on a ladder truck provide stabilization when the ladder goes in the air. So minimizing that use puts a smaller footprint where the ladder can operate. So we can put it into tighter places and put that ladder up. And then by replacing one of the engines with this ladder, it'll offset our replacement schedule. Currently, our 2 first out primary fire engines are both 2014 model year. That would put us at replacing them at the same time. By adding this in, it'll separate the years of those 2 primary apparatus. So as we replace them, they'll be different years, ideally different bienniums. We're not looking to spend, and we're not asking for any money at this time. We're asking to just secure the purchase price of the ladder. So no additional funds are requested. We're asking to lock in the purchase price of $1,583,365. The same model vehicle just 4 years ago, was priced at $1.1 million. This will be a budgeted item, two budget cycles from today. The engine that will be replaced will be sold, and those profits will be put into the appropriate apparatus replacement line item. And we also had in this budget cycle, in this biennium, money allocated for a Type 3 wildland fire engine. We didn't spend that money because we were able to receive a brand new Type 3 wildland fire engine via a grant from the State Fire Marshal's office. So that money that was allocated for that Type 3 engine has been moved over to the apparatus replacement fund, and that will offset the cost of this ladder truck. Here's a picture of the specific make and model that we are looking at that we would like to purchase. Questions regarding the ladder truck?
So this is a bit unusual, and the reason we're here tonight is because we are seeing a change to how we normally function as a government. So typically we budget for something, appropriate it, purchase it, receive it all within our budget cycle. That is no longer feasible for some of the items we need. And so what we're having to do is plan many years in advance to expend those funds because we must order things 5 years in advance. And so tonight we're asking to approve us going into a contract for something we won't receive for 2 budget cycles, which is a bit unusual.
Councillor Hyatt?
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, thank you. The presentation was very informative, helped answer most of my questions. The one open item I have is this council has been very supportive of climate-friendly areas, and we are also, in that effort, looking to allow for increased heights up to 50 feet. You said it's a 100-foot ladder. Yes, I can do math. But in light of that policy direction, procurement of this apparatus supports that policy as well, yes?
Yes, it does. We are aware of the climate-friendly environmental areas that are a mandate from state land development, and this ladder was taken into consideration with those, or with those into consideration.
Thanks so much.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, a couple questions. So, excuse me, is one of the reasons why we're not doing this sooner, is it budgetary or is it logistics because they're just pushed so far out?
They're pushed so far out.
They're pushed so far
It's
out.
logistics on time to, build the truck.
And could you remind me how often our ISO rating is done?
I believe our ISO rating is reevaluated every 5 years. It's supposed to be reevaluated now. There were some extenuating circumstances that have delayed that evaluation.
Sure. So we should be on track for the next ISO rating with this.
Correct.
Great. I kind of before even being on council thought that we needed a ladder truck. I supported it when there was conversations about it in the last budget cycle, and it's unfortunate that we can't have it sooner, but I really appreciate the opportunity and the way you've worked the funding to be able to make this work. So thank you, and congrats to your team once you get it.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks. I also support this. I'm just a little uncertain about the timing of the budget, when this hits our finances. So you said it's 2 cycles. It's the next 2 cycles. So it's the next budget cycle 25-27 and 27-29, or it's 27-29. Or when is it?
Not the next one. Not the next one. The one after.
So not the next one, not 27-20, not 25-27, not 27-29, but 29-31. And how do we actually make sure that and everyone remembers this when we're planning for that?
So our equipment fund is a whole situation.
Yeah.
So we will be under contract one, and we track over multiple years, multiple vehicles to ensure that we can do the proper replacement. So this is that same process. It's just a placeholder, knowing that it's coming.
Got it. Thanks.
Councillor Hanson?
Tedious.
Thank you. Mark, I got a quick question. You said that our old engine will be sold off and those funds reappropriated for the new engine, which sparked a question. Is there such a rare vehicle that would pop up on the used market, the same Gov auction that we're selling our engine to? Is there any opportunity to get one sooner from the used market?
There might be. The challenge that we would face would be ensuring that, one, it's been adequately maintained. We want to make sure that, we have something for the greatest amount of time. So that is a possibility, and that is something that we can look at, but can't guarantee that we would get something that would fit our needs and would last the length of time that we would like it to last.
I'm sure it's a needle in a haystack guarded by a unicorn, but if you could find one and get it sooner, I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. In terms of our upcoming ISO rating process, will ordering this truck affect that rating? The fact that we have it under contract?
Yes, I think we, in talking with the ISO evaluator, they are willing to take into account additional information like this. So having it under contract would provide us some additional ISO points. It might not get us the full value of when we would have the truck in hand per se, but it will help.
Councillor Hyatt?
I'm prepared to make a motion when you're ready.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Hyatt?
I move to approve the purchase agreement with used fire equipment to purchase a Pierce Enforcer 107 Ascendant Aerial BN 1182 apparatus.
Second.
Councillor Hyatt?
Mark, thank you. We do see the impacts of inflation on our work, and this is both prudent and proactive to those inflationary pressures, and it also accounts for the lead times. So thank you for that work. It's responsive to our community needs, current and those we hope to have under the CFA work. Our AF&R team, both fire and EMS, are integral to the health and safety of this community, and investing in the health and safety of our community and our residents is core to this body's work. So it is an imperative that our life-saving teams have the tools they need to do their job. It is for that reason I'm happy to make this motion.
Councillor Bloom?
Thank you. Yeah, as always, I don't think that I could say it any better, except to add that you could tell how much all of us wanted to jump at a second there. So I hope that the AFR is feeling all the love tonight.
Thank you.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, I want to tell you, it sounds like this is a very tedious job, especially hearing from city manager, and I'm glad that we can lock in the price now. I appreciate the sale of one to pay for another and how it's being budgeted out, and it's much needed, so I appreciate the work, and I will be supporting it.
Okay. Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Mark was going to give a FEMA update, but in the sake of time, we will become in March to talk about that. So if we can maybe hold on that to move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for your support.
So our next agenda item is the Community Center Rehabilitation, next steps, and the Management Advisory Committee recommendations.
Light, here we go. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Scott Fleury, Public Works Director, and I'm here to talk about the continuation of a meeting that we had in October about the community center rehabilitation process. At that point in time, staff brought before you an issue of the potential additional structural modifications to the facility versus demolishing and constructing a new community center facility. Through that discussion with the council and staff, council requested that staff establish a management advisory committee to review the issue at hand and make a recommendation of which would be brought forward to the city council for consideration. So after that October study session meeting, I reached out to a few local community members to establish the management advisory committee. And I'd like to recognize them now for their participation. We have Mark Knox, Dale Shostrom, and Steve Ennis, and they are actually in the audience tonight in case the council wishes to ask them any questions. And then also Corey Grimm was a participant as well. We held 2 meetings in November where The MAC was provided background information and budgeting information for the project itself and the status. They were given a tour of the facility with Outlier Construction, ZCS Engineering. The engineer of record was there and participated. And then we had deliberation and discussion in the community development building as well over those 2 meetings. They were given information about 3 fundamental options for the community center itself. One, continue with the current path of rehabilitation with some minor modifications that have been unearthed since we've done some of the demolition that need to be addressed, period. Second option was a more robust structural improvement to the facility, which included leveling the floors in the community center and also bringing the out-of-plane walls back into plane. And then the third option was demolishing the facility and constructing a new community center. There's detailed kind of budget breakdown that was provided to the MAC as part of the discussion in your packet. Through the discussions, the MAC outlined a bunch of bullet points on why they think the recommendation is the appropriate one by protecting the historic resource, not the intrinsic need to level the floors and bring the wall into plane as part of the overall structural improvements, and validating the reasoning why we would demolish the building and build a new structure to the community when other developers have to kind of maintain the historic integrity of things that they rebuild as part of that structure. And all that, I won't go into detail on all of them, but those are all represented in the packet as well. And through that discussion, the MAC recommended to move forward with option number 1, which was basically aligns with the initial design for the community center and the rehabilitation process with some minor modifications. The footing needs to be enlarged, the sill plate needs to be replaced, some of the post and beam foundation supports need to be replaced. There's also some ADA additions that need to be addressed, of which they wanted to kind of maintain some of the interior doors that had the transom windows and just replace the hardware, not replace the doors. Follow through with changing out the electrical system. It's currently a 2-wire system, not grounded, and going to a 3-wire system since we will be installing electric heat and air cooling system and already doing some electrical upgrades. Another recommendation that they had is in the larger office space to the left side as you face the building is carpeted. And the recommendation would be to have hardwood floor in that space to open it up for an improved use overall. So those were their general recommendations to move forward with the path that we're currently on with those minor modifications. We would need to have some level of pricing adjustment with Outlier for the additional work once we give them direction. So that budget breakdown that you see in your packet, I think it's about $975,000, would have an increase to it to account for the additional structural work required to facilitate that, option 1 level of improvement. Currently, we've spent about $330,000 overall towards the project, and that's as of 11/1. So we have another month of work that's transpired that hasn't been invoiced for yet. So that leaves about $1.39 million left overall in the contract. There is about $340,000 left to spend on Pioneer Hall to finish that phase of the project, leaving just over $1 million in funds under the current contract with contingency to finish the community center. So that $975,000 is real close there. So to follow along and complete the option 1 recommendation from the MAC group, we would probably need a small amount of additional funds to come to support those improvements. There would be a significant level of additional funds required to go to the more robust structural solution, and then even more funds budgeted over the next biennium to do the demolition and reconstruction of a new facility. As far as a timeline goes, The option one still looks like, if we can get that moving forward, a March to April finishing of the facility and bringing it back online for recreation public use. Option two, we're probably looking at an additional month or so, because they would have to schedule the structural ramjack group to come in, and they need a 2 to 3 week lead time to organize themselves. So we'd looking at about 4 months, probably April, May timeframe, to bring the facility back online. In discussions with the MAC about building a new facility, you know, they thought our initial timeline that we developed by the end of '25 was a bit aggressive, based on their background and their knowledge. And Steve is a local architect, so he's been through these design processes and knows these things, and Mark on the development side, and same with Dale. So a more reasonable, realistic time frame was about 18 months to go through the public hearing process, validate the SHPO requirements, do the building planning, design, permitting process, and then start the construction phase. So that would potentially bring a new facility online at some point in 2026. And so that was kind of the basis of everything that panned out over those two meetings, as part of that discussion. And with that, you know, I'll just open it up for questions and discussion. And Mark, Dale, and Steve are here if you have any questions of them as part of this overall process.
Questions? Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that. And I really appreciate the MAC coming together and providing us this information. Just some questions about the financing here. So it's looking like a little over $1 million available, and that would be for option one. But with potential cost overruns and the condition of the building it is right now, we could see that number climb. Is that correct?
You will see that number climb. I just don't know what that's going to look like. We're probably looking at, you know, $60,000 for additional electrical and door hardware issues. And then you're looking at the kind of the overhead addition for extra time right now. And for option two, that increases. So the insurance that Outlier's paying, the bonding, you know, the fencing, the honey huts, things like that that are there, are additional costs that will incur. But they're not dramatic in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
But those will apply to option one and option two.
And that of course, though, I mean, that's not in the hundreds of thousands if the building doesn't completely collapse, which I feel like, I guess what I'm getting at is that option one is going to potentially probably lead into option two in terms of cost, and option two likewise would probably lead into option three in terms of cost. And I'm not saying one way or the other that we should be making a decision on option 1, 2, or 3. I'm just saying that these are things that we need to be thinking about. There is a lot of unknowns about this building, and I do have concerns about us investing a significant amount of money for it to completely just collapse, and us having to say, well, we just have to build a whole new building anyways. And so I just want to be very careful that we are good stewards of the public funds when having this discussion. But I also understand all, you know, everything else that the MAC has put together and the recommendations also make a lot of sense. It's just, for me, there is that big question mark about the structural integrity of that building, especially in construction.
And so that was one of the discussion points that we had as a group with the engineer. And based on the initial council direction of making sure that the building met the live and dead loads for the building code and the occupancy type is what we move forward with from the design standpoint. In that discussion, the engineer is still confident that the structural changes with some modifications now that we know more still meet that code intent, and the building official doesn't have any issues with that either from his side in his review and his participation in these meetings. It will not meet the seismic code requirements, but that was not a directive from the council at this point because of the design that's put in place. So, but there is confidence from the MAC group, from their historic knowledge and working on buildings of this nature, and the engineer, that the structural integrity will be there for the code requirements. You're still going to have things, you know, doors are going to be out of plumb a little bit because your building is out of level, your wall is out of plane. That's a historic building, and I think they will represent that, and that got represented in the letter that was developed as part of your packet, that these are things that are part of a historic building, and that's part of the nature of them.
Follow-up, if I may, because it just popped up. You mentioned that it's not meeting the seismic requirements or expectations that a building like that should have. I'm curious, would our insurance cover us if there was a seismic event that collapsed the building? Would we be covered?
I would have to check, but generally, if we know it's a hazard and we don't address it, there is some issue with that. But I don't have an answer to that at this point.
And that's something that option 2 addresses. Is that correct?
The new building
No,
addresses
just the
the,
new building.
seismic.
Correct. Okay.
Option 2 is in between. Yeah, so it levels the floor and brings the walls that are out of plane back into plane. Option 3 meets the current seismic structural code for development, building development. Yeah.
Councillor Hanson?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time into this. It's clearly something you're passionate about, and I really do honor your time and investigation. And I'm curious, I don't remember, Scott, could you help refresh our memory? Back in October when this first came, we did a tour, and we talked here in this chamber about these issues. Was there a staff recommendation on what to do at the time? And if so, do you recall what it was in the packet?
The initial staff recommendation was based on alternative 2 and alternative 3. We didn't really bring alternative 1 into the discussion, and the staff recommendation at that time was to build a new facility, kind of following along with the lines of having an improved use on the recreation side, meeting energy efficiency codes, building codes, seismic codes, all of those things would be mitigated with a new structure. And that's why we brought in Parks, Rocky, I don't know if he's back there anymore, but had that discussion from the recreation side. You know, one of the things that I talked about, that we talked about as a group, is it was a meeting hall that's been converted to a recreation space, or tried to be pushed into a recreation space. And so from a recreation usage, you can only really have one user in that facility. Whereas if you were to design a new facility, you could probably have a couple of users in that facility taking up space at the same time.
Well, thank you. So I appreciate that the MAC has their recommendations. I just want to remind us that we had a recommendation from staff, and that was our recommendation, and those were the reasons. And at the time, and still now, I support a complete demolition and rebuild based on those reasons, that recommendation. I feel that that's the investment that our kids and our kids' kids, future generations will appreciate the most. So I didn't support going around for this MAC, but I do appreciate everybody's time into it, and I will be supporting the new building for those reasons.
Are there any final questions of staff? Councillor Hyatt.
Scott, thank you, and my sincere appreciation to the MAC as well for your time and your effort. Scott, I want to pull the lens back away from just the community center. The council body is going to be receiving a facilities report in the near future. And looking at the dollars, I'm not even sure that the full 1.8 would be available, but looking at dollars in general that are available to address the needs of our facilities, is it prudent at this time to spend 1.8 on one facility if we are aware that there is need across multiple facilities in the future?
So before I came up here, I was out in the lobby talking to Brandon and Rocky about this same thing. We actually had the kickoff meeting for the space needs portion of the study with ORW this morning. They met with multiple department heads and parks. I wish that was 6 months into the future, because I would have a better answer, because we know the facility assessment and the foundational costs associated with that, but we don't have a definition for the space needs and utilization portion of it to give you a good recommendation. I need both of them together to create that driver to say, yeah, 1.8 million is fine because of these benefits. and knowing the recommendations coming out of the facility space needs portion would be this, and the timing would be this. We're in no man's land because we don't have that in front of us to help guide this decision behind us.
But we do have significant deferred
We do
maintenance
have
costs.
significant deferred maintenance. And part of that discussion is, what facilities do we need and divest of as a revenue source to help offset some of that deferred maintenance, and how those facilities are utilized. That's really kind of the portion of the question we're trying to answer is in the space needs portion of the study. And we're hoping, that we can get some of that in front of the council in spring of next year, to talk about that from a budgetary impact statement and a planning function for us looking over this next 2 to 3 biennium.
Thank you.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you. Scott, you mentioned option one. So if we were to go with option one, you mentioned that it's an older building and there are going to be certain things that are going to be stuck and things that might be unleveled. Opening the doors, the building can still be in process of getting things done. Is that correct? I mean,
Yeah, we
if
would finish up that work in about 3 to 4 months from now, opening it back up for recreation, community use in spring of '25. Parks Department could start programming recreation use in that facility at that time. The intent is also to have Pioneer Hall done by March as well, and Outlier Construction is on track to that. So option one essentially has both those facilities open for and available for recreation use starting in spring of '25, correct?
Because I ask that because I think it's very important and the community has been waiting for this for so long. I appreciate the experience of this MAC. I appreciate the experience of the first ad hoc. So I trust what you are saying, and the best building, when I look at the age of this building, it's sustainable, it can work, and keeping it there is great for zero greenhouse gases. I want it to stay.
So if there are no additional questions, the floor is open. There's one more question. Councillor Hanson?
I'm sorry, one more quick question. Regardless of option 1, 2, or 3, I've heard from downtown businesses that the fence and the construction zone footprint has really hampered business. Thank you. Is there a way that we can minimize the impact regardless of how we move forward on the location to increase traffic downtown, parking downtown?
So I think Ryan, when we were here in October, talked about this a little bit, that once the Pioneer Hall is done, that the fencing area in front of Pioneer Hall can be shortened to just be in front of the community center. So that frees up a couple spaces up above. You still have to have parking for the construction workers to come and go to the site. So they're going to take up parking. We've typically asked them to park higher up and not right there, just as we typically do with our own staff, to not park in the first few spots there on Winburn, to park higher up to allow users of the downtown businesses to have a closer space and walking distance. So that's kind of a practice, but we're not out there policing it on a daily basis either.
Do you think there could be a play to partner with the owner of the parking lot right next to the community building?
We did do some outreach and they weren't receptive to that in general.
Okay. Thank you for trying. Appreciate that answer.
Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to continue with option one, rehabilitation under the original design intent with minor modifications.
Second.
Okay. Councillor Dale?
No, thank you. I appreciate all the work that's been done. I understand this is a tough decision, but I feel that this is the most appropriate decision at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, I want to echo that. I appreciate all the work that was done on this and the consideration of various different options. For me, the time is the biggest thing. this building's been closed for far too long. To think about it being closed for another 2 years is just, it's just intolerable. So I'd rather just get it up and running, and I appreciate everything you can do to make both of these buildings available to the public by spring. Thanks, Scott.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, thank you. I will be supporting this motion. I do have serious reservations. I think that there's a lot of risk involved with this. At the same time, you know, we talk about a new building and the time it's going to take to actually get the building open, but also, again, that impact to businesses, having those fencing around and doing that. So, look, this is a very difficult decision. I would have had reservations with either of the options, but not doing anything is not an option at all. But I guess this is why we make the big bucks, right? So,
Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, I would just like to state that if this does not pass, I would like to bring forth option 3 and make a motion for that, although I will support whatever the will of this body says from here on out. But for the reasons I stated earlier, I believe the best investment of taxpayer money is to demolish this building and build a brand new one.
Councillor Hyatt?
Just very briefly, I will be supporting the motion from the perspective that I do see additional requirements of our facilities needs long-term, and in the interest of the budgetary numbers, I feel option 1 is best at this time, given where we are in terms of the big picture information.
Councillor Duquesne?
I too support. That's why I spoke to it earlier, option 1. The community has waited long enough. I'm glad to see us finally getting some traction and moving forward.
Roll call, please, Alyssa?
Hyatt,
Yes.
Bloom,
yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson.
No.
So we have a couple of items left on our agenda and only a couple of minutes, but I'm going by my computer clock, which gives us one more. Councilors, I don't know if there is interest in the ad hoc master plan. I know there were just a couple of changes that we were looking at. I do have someone who has asked to speak, but wondering if this is something that we feel like we can deal with in just a couple of minutes, or are there significant questions? Councilor Bloom?
I don't think that in just a couple of minutes we could knock it out. I foresee multiple questions, and there's edits, and there's been feedback that have just been given today. Personally, I'd like more time, but again, we do whatever everybody else agrees to.
Councilor Hyatt?
I'd actually propose working on the social services coordinator position. That is something that has come before this body before. We have had consensus on it before. We have been presented with a funding stream, and it would allow staff the flexibility before the 21st to get things rolling. I'm happy to put a motion on the floor for discussion so that we can continue.
Sabrina, do you need anything from us on that? Or it's just a report, right?
Just informational.
So let's do this. Let's have you give us that information, highlights of the business management report or the city manager's report, and then I will need a motion on the floor to recognize Councilor Hyatt. Go, Sabrina.
Yeah, okay. Social services coordinator position. This is a request earlier in the year that we've been working through. So part of that is finding the appropriate funding source for a position. So in your packet, you have some information about using opioid funds, which will dictate kind of what that position will do to ensure that we have funding to match with the position, since this is a new position. That is in line with what you see bulleted as some of the activities they will be engaging in. We still have some steps to do in terms of doing some analysis of whether they would be full-time or part-time and when exactly this position would be brought online, but that is the intent.
Great. Any highlights from the city manager's report? No. Okay. So I do need a motion on the floor. Councilor Bloom.
Yes, I move for this council to take some time to recognize our colleague, Councilor Paula Hyatt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please. Oh, no, stop. Hold up. None of that. Okay. You almost got out. All right, so I would just like to open the floor if anyone would like to share any thoughts. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, happy to go first. I've had just the incredible honor to sit next to Councillor Hyatt. She's been an incredible mentor. I've learned so much, and I can only hope to be as good of a counselor and servant to this community as she has been. So, thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was absolutely going to second that first and foremost to keep you here 10 minutes longer because I could. Most of what I have to say will be said in a card or in private because I'm not going to be able to get through a lot of it. But you've been my North Star. You've been my mentor. As a freshman counselor on this, you just guided me through with your grace, with your patience. I just appreciate your friendship more than you know, and I certainly appreciate the fact that come January 1st, 2025, there will be zero issue with potential quorum issues when I call you up and still continue to ask. Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the real admiration that I think all of us feel for you, and how you've conducted yourself in these last 4 years. You're clear. I always hear what your rationale for your votes. It's very helpful. It's helpful to our community. Sometimes I just want to just do it, and I don't explain it. And I think the explanations are really, really helpful. And I don't think anyone prepares a motion and adjusts a motion and really kind of figures it all out on the fly with the skill that you do. So I will certainly miss you in these meetings, but also, as others said, just your wise counsel outside of meetings from time to time. So I'll be calling you, asking, what do you say? It's a telephone for a friend or something? It's a phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
So you're going to be on the other side of that. So thank you, Paula.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reflect when I first met you, Paula, at Emerge class, and how we got to know each other through Emerge, how we got a chance to campaign together, how we got a chance to discuss together, and the opportunity to know each other outside of this. So you will be missed. I don't know who's going to make these awesome proposals. I don't know. I guess it's you, Dylan. I don't know. I don't know who's going to do that, but your motions are always on point, and you will be missed. And thanks so much for your service.
Councillor Henson.
I have nothing significant to add. Everybody said it really well, but it's just been an honor working with you. And when I was sitting there on my campaign watching the council, I learned a lot from everybody on the then council, but you especially taught me how to communicate the real important parts of the packet that need to be communicated to the citizenry, and how that impacts them, and why your decision matters to them. And that, I think, it's exemplary of a counselor to not only get the work done, but to bring groups together and really explain and educate. So I thank you for that, and I look forward to hearing about what you're going to do with all of your time. And I'm sure that your family will benefit the greatest, but I appreciate all of your service. So thank you very much. And it's for that I support this going away statement.
So Paula, you have been an incredible council chair for the last couple of years, and I know that as we've gone through so many different conversations as a council, being able to come to you and work things through has been just an incredible gift to me personally. And when I think of all of the different things that you have brought leadership to, but particularly the voice of children in our community, I have just really appreciated that perspective and that unwavering willingness to say, and what about our little ones? And so thank you so much for your service. I know our community is so much the better for it, and I wish you the very best going forward. I see we have a couple of people who have sat to the mic. Is that for this?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Paula, I've spent a lot of time in council chambers, and I feel like I really got to know you at the first meet and greet, the coffee and conversations. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you. You got a good head on you. You know your numbers, and you're always well prepared. And that's something I'm going to strive on. It's being informed and well prepared. So thank you. I appreciate you.
I'm taking the liberty to just be a new Ashlander, having watched this council deliberate and respect and bring in voices, and the way in which you lead from the standpoint that we need to think our way through this as well as act from the heart. So bringing head and heart together in service to community, I think you've been exemplary. Thank you.
So Paula, we have some gifts for you. We have a plaque from the city. You get to pick where to put it. We won't be that directive. And where are you going to hang it? And then we also have a gift for you to thank you for your service.
It's dusty in here.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that city staff is also feeling the change. So we want to send our appreciation to you from your days back on Citizen Budget Committee to all the way to council chair. And we appreciate all the time you've taken with city staff, including being a really great liaison to all of the committees and learning all about the government stuff to be able to make decisions. So we appreciate your service here. Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll be super brief. Very humbled. And I know at these moments, people are like, it's an honor and a privilege to serve. And it sounds like a little cliche, but it's true. It's 100% true. But it also occurs to me that good policy is not on the back of one person. It's on this group. And we make supportive policy for our community together. And I thank you for rolling up your sleeves, for challenging me, challenging each other, so that we get to the best possible place for our residents. We are well informed by an army of volunteers in our commissions and our committees. They have advised me well. I am grateful to them, and I'm grateful for their continued service to this body and to our community. I am exceptionally grateful to our staff, because we could have the best crafted policy, but it doesn't work if it can't be operationalized. And I am a better counselor because of the staff members who have taken the time to educate me and make me better when I come and sit in this chair. So I want to make sure to express my deep gratitude to all of our staff. And I'll leave with a quick story that I had been asked many times to run, and I politely declined many times. And then I was on a walk with my little one, and she saw a sign in the yard of a friend. It was just before our May election, and she knew my opinion, and she knew we disagreed. And she was worried we couldn't be friends anymore. And that galvanized me to file. And that is the final thing that pushed me to run. And I am very confident when I say we absolutely can disagree. We absolutely can challenge, and we should. And we do. And we can do it in a way that is constructive and effective for our community. And I thank you all for making that possible.
Thank you. And Councilor Hyatt, would you offer our motion to adjourn?
Oh, no, I can't do that. No, I'm not breaking with precedent. I'll second
No,
it,
no.
but you got to make it.
All right, I'll allow it.
I'm not even comfortable with this. I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Happy holidays.
Let's get a picture with Councilor Hyatt.
That's all. I'm glad you didn't talk anymore.
No, I want a picture of the two of you.
All right, Gina, have a happy holiday.
Yes, happy holidays.